Hello, puppies and kittens. This is Aron Ra, and I am joined by Professor Dave Farina. You should know his channel. Today is Juneteenth, 2023. We're taking open calls today. You can call us in at 720-619-2288. And we will be reading Superchats toward the end of the show. And before we get started, we were talking about some issues with vaccines and how they're in the news right now. My daughter just told me this bizarre story where she had gone to a doctor like just a couple of days ago. She meets a new doctor because she's just moved back to Texas. And so this guy comes in and he asks her if she's vaccinated. She says, oh, yes, she's a recent military veteran. She's fully vaxxed, all that. And then the guy leaves, comes back with some collection of paperwork he apparently had gathered from Google and printed out. And then started telling her how the vaccine included little pieces of some strange unearthly metal that would allow the government to take over using 5G and potentially 6G communications to take over your body, your motions of your body, as well as clear and wipe your memories at will. And my daughter's talking about how this doctor's talking to her for a good little while about these kinds of outrageous claims while she's stark, deer in the headlights, stunned, trying to look pleasant and just nod and see if she can get the signature on the paper she needs and get the fuck out of there. And this is a doctor who has been practicing for 40 fucking years. Little disturbed at how people are these days. Dave Farina, what do you got to say?
Not much. I mean, yeah, it seems like this is the hot issue these days. I think one of the things that we should talk about is how RFK Jr. going on Rogan's podcast. RFK obviously is running for president, and sort of the centerpiece of his entire platform is just an amalgam of batshit insane anti-vax talking points. Which is alarming. And so, yeah, he went on there and he spewed his typical script. And then now there's this frenzy for him to debate a prominent scientist in the field on Rogan's podcast. And Rogan keeps kind of egging him on. And then even Elon Musk got involved on Twitter and was like, hey, you won't do it because you're wrong. And it's like, oh, my God, like Elon Musk is getting involved. It's like Rogan. I don't know. I don't know why this has escalated to the point that it has, basically.
I'm a little stunned at the level of stupidity from just across the board. I mean, I'm an older guy. I remember when every other child I knew had the same scar in their shoulder that I did from our polio vaccine, but I was also young enough to know people who had survived polio and were confined to a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. And so, I mean, I have a very different take on this because polio wasn't the killer anymore that it used to be, and it's because we all had these little scars in our shoulders.
Yeah. So, same with smallpox.
And there's not a technology you can find for some kind of mystery metal. Really, mystery metal? It's like you watch that ridiculous movie, what was it, Avatar, right? Where they had unobtainium. Remember that? Yeah. Where's that on the periodic table? They call it an element.
It's almost
unobtainium
fun of itself. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old episodes of Bullwinkle cartoons because they had the same thing there. You remember in Avatar, they had the floating rocks, the floating islands that just float in the air for no reason? Mm-hmm. Bullwinkle cartoons had those too. That element was called upsidasium. And the shitty thing is that people know so little about chemistry and physics and all like this that they don't understand what a periodic table is. Find me unobtainium or upsidasium somewhere on there.
Well, right. I mean, that's why
make up mystery elements.
Yeah, that's why the people name them that, as to be like, look, we admit that this is ridiculous. It's a joke, right? It's silly. I mean,
it's
Avatar,
one thing when it's a Bullwinkle cartoon. It's one thing when it's a Bullwinkle cartoon, and you knew even in the 1960s that all the children watching this get the joke. But then fast forward to Avatar, and the adults in the room don't know that it is a joke anymore.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing with vaccines is like, I want to have sympathy because, look, not everybody understands biochemistry or immunology or epidemiology or any of these things, and that's fine. And to have questions is fine. And to have skepticism or to be have worries about the pharmaceutical industry is fine, but then people are just way too eager to fall for any narrative they hear on the internet, and the problem is how many people are pushing them, and that there's even fake doctors pushing this stuff on Twitter all over the place. So it's like it's really easy for people to get swayed, and it's an enormous problem that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, we had a doctor here in Texas who was feigning to cure cancer by injecting his own urine into his patients.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he was selling his cancer cure. And I knew people that were referring me that I should take, the people that I knew that had cancer, that I should take them for this treatment. No, and aren't you stupid? I mean, how do you even deal with this anymore? I mean, I've met people. I know people.
Off. That's the highlight. That's the headline.
Yeah, I know people right now that it seems that if it's something you could prove to be true in a moment, they don't even want to know what it is. But if it's something you could prove to be false in a moment, that's what they believe.
Yeah.
The fuck? It's like you only believe lies? Why? But that is how some people are.
Psychological. Yeah, there's something about like I want to be the one that knows the secret. I want to be in the club that knows the special remedy that they don't want you to know about, right? They don't want you to know.
The select.
That sort of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the chosen few with the secret information.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get to some
it's
calls.
A quagmire.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get to some calls here. If you don't mind, I would like to start with Pam Demonium from Missouri, who wants to talk, I guess, to me about the clergy. They had an MDE. I'm guessing they meant NDE. And the clergy was sent in against her will. Would like to talk about that. So, Pam Demonium, you're on the line.
Hello. Good evening.
You too?
I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. My first time ever calling into a show before. I don't have nothing to say about the vaccines. I was a former laboratory technician. I have bachelor's degree. I used to work in the lab. I got nothing to say about that. This whole vaccine hysteria just is absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, let me get to my main point. I had about 20 years ago. I have a brain condition. I had to have major surgery on my brain. Post-surgery, I had pulmonary emboli that they did not expect. And my blood oxygen was about 85%, 82 to 85%, and I went into shock. So they had to do forced oxygen. They didn't think I was going to survive. I was made to stay in the hospital an extra 2 weeks on top of recovering from the brain surgery itself to recover from the PE. Well, a couple of days after when I was able to start speaking again, they asked me if I wanted clergy, because I was still at that point where I could die at any point in time. I had so many blood clots in my lungs they couldn't count them. And they asked to send me to. I'm trying to be as fast as I can. They asked to send somebody in. And I said, no, I'm an atheist and I don't want anybody. And it's even on my paperwork, all my paperwork, and then paperwork for my care, the person who's my secondary decision maker, in case I can't make decisions. They sent somebody in. So they sent this person in, and he was dressed, but he didn't have the collar or anything. But I'm like, who are you? I'm trying to sleep here. And he says, oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm Reverend so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, they didn't tell you I'm an atheist? He said, well, they did, but I'm making the rounds anyway. And I figured I'd stop in and see if you needed any spiritual guidance. I said, oh, no, thank you. I said, I don't believe in God, in anything, any God or metaphysical, just any of the metaphysical
Exactly.
stuff.
How can I have spiritual guidance when there's no such thing as a spirit?
That's what I said. Exactly what I said to him. I said, he's like, well, what do you rely on? I said, well, my parents come visit me. I work at this hospital, so my friends come and visit me all the time. I said, in fact, I had friends just come in and I let them pray over me. And the only reason I let them pray over me because it made them feel better, that they would help, that made them feel better. And I told them that. Because they know I'm an atheist, and they said, can we pray over you to make ourselves feel like we're doing something for you? And I said, okay, if it makes you guys feel better. and I know that you're doing it because you love me and you care and you want to try to do something for me, then that knowing that you love me makes me feel better. And I said, but I don't know you. You don't love me. So you being here preaching at me is not going to do anything for me other than aggravate me when I can just barely speak. I'm only just being able to say full sentences at this time. I still got nose cannula.
Now they want to engage you in an impaired...
I said, dude, I got a nose cannula up my nose. What? You want to have a conversation about my lack of belief in God? And he's like, I'm so sorry. He says, I've never met an atheist. And I said, how old are you? And he was a little younger than me. And I'm about your age, Aron. So, I said, and you've never met an atheist? He says, well, I might have met one, but nobody's actually openly said it or had a conversation. I said, well, nobody openly said, at this point in time, it's very difficult to openly say you're an atheist to anybody because it threatens your job. It threatens the way people look at it. Changes the way people look at you as soon as they find out, and the way people speak about you.
At minimum, it could be taken as starting a fight.
Oh yeah. I had right before I went into surgery. That's when my coworkers found out I was an atheist, and one of the my other coworkers finally got up and said, "I am too." So we were like, not alone, and we were not alone in being able
Pandemonium. I'm just on my end because this is the producer chiming in, just because we have a way we got to run things. I'm trying to figure out. I just want to encourage you to be prompt so we can get to the question portion for Aron and for Dave. As this, we're trying to make it more of a call-in discussion thing than like an open mic thing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Doesn't have to be about vaccines if we can just get to the question.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that I empathize with your experience, and speaking to, and it gets forced on you, whether you want it or not. And I find that to be an absolute violation, and you had every right to be. And I support the fact that you were annoyed and you were vocal about it. I just wanted to let you know that. Because I was annoyed and I was vocal about it, but we sat down and we had a discussion. And he never converted me, obviously. But I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you both for the conversation tonight and about the information for people about vaccines and how they work. And thank you very much, Jimmy. And GYS.
Sure. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do this with you still on the line because I don't want this to just seem like a mean thing that I'm doing once you're off the line or anything. I want to make sure that you don't feel attacked or something. But I want to remind callers in general that this is a, as far as topic of the night and everything, this is a call-in show. You're calling in to either ask questions or engage in a back and forth. And while this was a great story, it's not really an open mic sort of share your testimony kind of show. So if we can limit to that for any callers in the future, but thank you for calling and just sort of keep that in mind when you call in the future there, Pam.
I'm very sorry. I was going to ask some questions, but I realized I was taking up too much time. But thank you very much.
If you have questions, you're welcome to throw them out now.
I just wanted to ask him, was the person who the clergy was coming in for, were they also an atheist, or were they? Was it being forced? No. Okay.
Yeah, it didn't become an issue until she turned her attention on me. And for anybody that's listening to this and don't know what we're talking about, I just uploaded a video like an hour ago where I had a confrontation with a hospital chaplain. I'm there for somebody else that is a religious person, someone very close to my family who is in a very bad shape. And the chaplain turned and then started saying that she was going to pray for me. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm an atheist. I don't need it. And then she pressed and started preaching at me about how God created me and loves me and everything. And forced me into a retaliatory mode where I now have to tell her that there is no God, there is no soul, and don't feed me your bullshit. This is real world problems. Real world solutions are necessary. And so I was not proud of my rebuttal, because I know she thinks she's being nice. She's so not. But she walked out of that room thinking she was the nice one. What do you even do with that? All right. Well, thank you very much for your call and for your question.
Thank you so much.
And I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you have a favorite in the list here? Because we've got a bit of a queue. Dave, who would you like next?
I don't think Dave sees the queue because we haven't set Dave up to see the queue.
I can't see anything.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
sorry.
You pick. I don't care.
I'd recommend you take David on line 4 there.
David, okay, so this is Ohio Theist says, how can we trust our senses and reasoning ability? Oh, where is it? And
you don't have to read
ability
the notes, man. You can just let him tell.
Yeah, okay.
It's all good.
Let him say it. All right, so Dave in Ohio, what you got for us?
Hi, how you doing?
It's all right. So you want to read out your question?
Oh, sorry. It's my first time on this show. I'll do that right now. So my name is David, and my question is, how can we trust our senses and reasoning ability to properly reflect reality when our most deeply ingrained intuitions and our mental and sensory abilities are directed more towards survival? I guess I could probably have said pragmatism.
I think you just answered your own question.
Reality.
Yeah, I think you just answered your own question. Now, conversely, I would like to throw the question back to you. As a theist, as a faith believer, how can you trust your reasoning ability when you have doctrine that teaches things like, let the Bible be the only source of truth in our world, as if all of reality is a lie and only the book of lies is true? When you have a belief system that requires that you be absolutely convinced of things that are not evidently true and that you reject any inconvenient truth so that you can believe things that are not supported by anything at all, then how could you trust your senses? When we have a set of senses that have been that have evolved for our survival, there's the obvious answer to that question. But in the case of a faith believer, I'm confused.
Okay. So if I can, this was based off of something from Michael Ruse, but just to respond quickly to what you were saying there, the scripture does speak to all of creation, speaking of the glory of God, be it his transcendent Godhead or his eternal power. And so I'm not exactly sure which tradition you're referring to that says that all of that which is outside of the Bible is a book of lies. As a matter of fact, early on in church history, the tradition of the church is more commonly that there's the book of the scripture and then there's the book of nature, right? There's this understanding which can be properly understood of God through nature, which is the majority of Christian philosophy and Christian thought for, well, most of church history since the very beginning, with early on people trying to use philosophy to explain and reason to the existence of God, as the scripture speaks of in Romans.
I'm about to do a video on Romans, by the way. I'm going to be doing a video on Romans this week because it is so it's so often quoted and so completely deceptively. It's as if the people who read Romans were only told about Romans by some other apologists and never read the rest of the Bible around it.
Well, I'm not exactly. I'll have to watch your video at some different point, but that was just my response to what you were saying about not being allowed to use, inconvenient truths or whatever you might have said in that matter. But back to the question I was asking, I'm going based off of Michael Ruse. Michael Ruse is a atheist philosopher who speaks of, in a really good essay, I think it's pretty well constructed. It's called The Naturalist Challenge to Religion, in which Michael Ruse describes his challenges to theism, his challenges to the ways in which theism can be rationally or irrationally put together with scientific thought. And in his paper, he argues throughout that he thinks that there's greater epistemic probability for methodological and metaphysical naturalism. That's his final conclusion by the end of the essay. Okay. And it's a really good essay. So I won't read the whole thing as if to force y'all to read it now. That wouldn't be very fair. Okay. But there is a point in the essay that I want to
asking the question, on. We have, how can we trust our reasoning? So we have to apply the question to both of us. So when we use scientific methodology, right, we are aware of one of the things, the first things that science looks at is to minimize or eliminate biases because of how deceptive biases can be. And one of the ways that we do that is that in order for us to make any kind of postulation, we must have it first supported by evidence that's already known, already indicative, and we have to account for what the evidence indicates, right? That's where we have to follow the evidence to the conclusion, whereas the believer starts with the conclusion and then seeks anything that meets that, and of course ignores everything that contradicts that. So there's one reason that we can trust our own. That's one of the ways that we can trust our own reasoning, is the fact that we don't blindly trust our own reasoning. We have to confirm it with objective verification. We have to be able to verify it with the facts. We realize that we may misremember some things. We may be passionately convicted, but still turn out to be wrong, and we're aware of that. And so that's why we need the confirmation and verification means. Whereas the believer just is going to believe, even when all the evidence says, not just that there's no evidence for it, but when there's all the evidence against it, they're going to believe anyway. So how does the believer trust senses and reasoning ability?
Yeah, sure.
Here's an important distinction, though.
Oh.
Let me just jump in for a second here. He wasn't even talking about reasoning. He was talking specifically about senses, so sensory information. But that's the thing. Science doesn't rely on that. The scientific enterprise doesn't rely on that. We don't perceive radio waves or microwaves or gamma rays because it was not useful to us in an evolutionary context. That does not limit us from using them, right? We use radio waves, and the evidence that they exist is that we have technology that utilizes them. We can't see molecules, right? But the field of chemistry exists. So science is not specifically about sense perception, right? We use things that we can't see, can't hear, can't touch, etc. But we do science with them. So I think if you want it's a bit of a different conversation if you want to talk about sensory perception or if you want to talk about reasoning, right? They're two different things.
Sure.
Yeah, I usually get the reasoning question, so that's where I went with that. And he did include his senses and reasoning, so that's which kind of went.
So, if I may, I know that you're saying faith believers go against any data which might go against their position. But
yes, they do.
Well,
definitely.
I think that's an unfair.
I mean, you go against it,
right?
We know that there's first of all,
for the sake of this conversation, just between us, I was really just legitimately asking, and I'll explain why I say this, because Michael Roos argues that the fact that humans throughout many different cultures have a belief that morals are objective, he says that this belief is deeply ingrained in people as a type of illusion, a falsity of evolution that helps in our survival. And why I am asking this question is because he then goes on to say the following, just so I don't incorrectly cite him or something like that. Yet could you not say that in some general sense we could be living in total deception? In some systematic way, selection could be shifting all of our beliefs out of kilter, rather like someone in a factory with red lighting thinks that all the products are red. So although we might be able to tell reality from illusion within the system, we can tell when a product is flawed or not. We cannot tell how things really are. My suspicion is that there may be something to this, but we have been aware of this point at least since Kant, if not Hume. All of our knowledge comes through human faculties. And as a pause, this is why I mentioned the senses and then mental abilities, so the reasoning capabilities. But back to it, all of our knowledge comes through our human faculties. If they distort reality, so be it. The best we can have is some kind of coherence theory of truth rather than a strict correspondence theory. The best we can do is to make all of our judgments hold together coherently. But this really
this isn't a reading show either. If you've got a question,
no, I know. This was just explaining like why Roos was saying this, right? He says that most fortunately it happens that since reason is incapable of dispelling these clouds, he's questioning if there's such a great possibility of deception in a materialistic evolutionary context.
I mean, I often get this from believers that, how do you know that you're not just a brain in a vat? And they usually use that as one of two arguments. It's either that they want to dispute that there is an objective truth so that you have your truth. What's true for you may not be true for me, as if that means reality is a matter of opinion, right? Which I disagree. We're both in the same reality. So that argument is negated. And then the other one is they want to find some way of dismissing evidence to go believe whatever they want. So it's often been used against me that whatever evidence I present in a given argument over the flood or the Exodus or whatever can be invalidated because I can't prove that I existed 2 weeks ago and that I wasn't created by a deceptive God with false memories. In which case, the flood and the Exodus didn't happen in that instance either. So either way, the Bible's still wrong, the story's still wrong, so that the apologetics doesn't work.
I hear what you're saying, but if I can, I'm not making either of those arguments. I'm not trying to lead to some sort of conclusion about it. All I'm asking is, according to Michael Ruse, and with him having good reason behind his argument as a metaphysical naturalist that he is, he's arguing that there are good reasons in an epistemic probability kind of sense, right? Just in an epistemic
I think sorry, I can't believe I'm doing this the second time already in the show. I'm sorry, everybody. I apologize to the caller. I apologize to the host. I apologize to everyone. David, this is a call-in debate show, and I get it. And I'm not saying you should know what you're doing right now is a bit ridiculous, but it is. You have something you're advocating for. Let's get you say, I want to defend this position. And you can mention that there is an argument, there's a person out there, there's this Ruse person who supports this line of thinking. But it's sort of bizarre on a debate show to say, hey, guys, so here are these points, and the things you're responding to I don't think are relevant. I want you to debate a book for me, and I'll be the messenger between the two. So what I'd like to ask David or David, okay, that's fine. David or David, I'd like for you to not quote a book ever again in the rest of the call. And I'd like you to, as this is a call-in discussion debate show, it's not a formal debate or anything. If you're fine with it, if not, we can just move on, and that's okay. And I really mean that. I'm not trying to be a dick. We can just move on, and that's okay. I'd like you to say, I think this, which presumably a point of opposition, or I am most compelled to believe such and such, and present a point that is you here to discuss with them, and not you here to discuss with them what their opinion might be of somebody in a book who might completely change the representation if they were actually here, and these two haven't read or necessarily, maybe both of them have, but these two presumably haven't read and don't know the full context of. So if we can just have the discussion be you and your beliefs versus them and their beliefs, that would be great. Is that good, David, or would you rather we just move on?
You're welcome to say that some rando agrees with you, though that's not relevant. And it doesn't matter that he's a materialist.
I think I understand what he's saying, though. I think that he's trying to bring up the epistemic probability of the idea that we're deceived by all senses and all of reality, when I think it's much simpler to consider the epistemic probability of you being deceived by one book. Don't you think that that's a much more probable scenario?
All I was trying to...
A book that tells you to believe what it says no matter what it said.
What?
A book that tells you to believe whatever it says, no matter what it says.
Because the book says so.
Again, that's not the argument I'm making. That's not fair. I'm not trying to strawman any of you.
Go for it. Here, we're going to give you the time right now to make your argument without quoting a single person. David, your argument is X. Go.
Okay. My argument is that there's a greater epistemic probability of our sensory and reasoning abilities being trustworthy throughout life in the Christian theistic context, as opposed to the metaphysical naturalist context.
I was going to agree with you until you started specifying in the faith where you believe things that are not evidently true, where you make believe things that are not evidently true, and deny the realities that contradict those faith-based beliefs, as opposed to when you accept the reality and don't try to embellish it. So I think there's a greater.
I'm asking about. I'm talking about.
You believe on faith, and you just said that you have a better. Did you have a better comprehension somehow if you have a faith-based belief in things that are not evidently true, based on arguments from authority, which is at the core fallacious, as opposed to those who do not have. Those who do not have a faith-based belief, those who only follow what is evidently true, and only hold tentatively even to that, only so long as it can withstand. And the moment we see,
that's not my argument.
Okay, all right.
Let me see if I can try. I think what you're saying is that. Let me try and summarize. I think you're saying that the probability of reasoning stemming from what a book tells you is true is higher than what we have gathered empirically over centuries. Is that what you're saying?
No, that is not at all what I'm asking
Well,
about.
then
or
you're really
talking about.
bad
I'm
at
saying,
explaining your point. I'm really trying genuinely to understand what you're saying.
okay, I didn't even bring. You keep on saying a book that explained this or that to me. I'm not. I didn't even
You said
mention
from the
Bible.
Christian. Okay, well, that's your scripture.
It
Isn't it? So
that
Sure,
is what
but
you said.
okay, what was that?
where else
That
are
is
you
what
getting
you
the
said.
information to?
I'm saying
Just
that we have trustworthy senses. I'm saying human beings, in a normative sense, have trustworthy senses, like sensory abilities and mental reasoning capabilities. I'm just saying that that fact that we do has a greater epistemic probability in the case that there is a God, more than that fact would be in the case that there were not a God.
Well,
that we
aside
can
from just
reason is
knee-jerk
evidence that a God
reaction.
exists.
Yeah, so I want you to try to
I heard people
just try to explain why you would have a better understanding of things when your mind and your reasoning ability is poisoned by the autodeceptive nature of faith than if you are not so impeded.
That's not what I'm saying. I
Or
said
are
we
you
all
saying
That is
have
what you're
we
saying,
can
actually.
reason?
That actually is what you're
Hold on,
saying, because you're saying that you have
Are you saying
a better
that we can
understanding
reason
if God exists than if God
Right.
doesn't exist.
I'm saying all
How?
human beings have good reason to trust their reasoning abilities and mental abilities. I'm not saying Christians, because they believe, have greater reasoning abilities. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the fact that human beings wholesale have a normally trustworthy set of sensory and mental abilities. Again, wholesale, not just Christians, just humans in general. We have good reason to trust in our mental
So are
and
reliable
sensory
regardless
capabilities.
whether there's a God or not, regardless whether we're religious or not.
But yeah, you would still have those reasoning abilities whether you were religious or not, and those are trustworthy overall, like trustworthy sensory.
I would still
and
argue
mental
that
reasoning.
even. I would still argue that.
I actually
because if
finally
you
get
have
it. This is just him trying to make an uber human specific fancy version of the fine tuning argument. Literally.
No,
Yes.
not even.
Yes.
that humans can reason is evidence that God exists? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not even it.
David,
I'm saying the
David,
simple fact.
None
we're
of the
moving
three of
on
us
because
understand what you're
yes,
saying,
you've
Ben, and we're all
actually
intelligent
said
people,
all
so
of the
I just-
things right in some version or
Don't
another.
tell me.
The reason one was that it's more epistemologically defensible, essentially that because that it is more defensible in a world, in a universe where a God exists, that we would have reliable sensories, that's a more
which
likely
is wrong.
universe than a universe without a God, that it would be less likely to happen, that it's more defensible in one versus the other.
Yeah.
And that is just a
it's
fancy
not.
human specific fine tuning argument. David, if
Yeah.
you're going to keep you need to learn what your arguments are before you call into a show like this. Cause your whole thing so far has just been people repeating back in a comprehensible way what you have been saying, and you going, that's not my argument. So either you need to figure out how to phrase your argument or figure out what your argument is. But I think we are going to move on. Thank you, David.
Have a good night.
Okay.
I'm so sorry for how much I've been interrupting. I will try to shut the fuck up for the rest of the show.
It's helpful, I think, at times.
Up to now, I thought I was the asshole. I'm kidding. Okay, so if you have a preference, otherwise I'm just going to be systematic and go in the order
we
they
always
appear.
we always prioritize, and atheists who call in know this. We always prioritize theist and argumentative callers. So don't worry about like I'd go to the next theist
Okay, I'll
first.
go to Wes. All right, we will go to Wes in the USA, who is a theist, and what was that argument? Wants to talk about vaccines and how pastors can help by informing their congregations toward acceptance. Go ahead. Wes,
Yes,
are you there?
hello. How are you? Can you hear me?
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't understand what the last caller was saying either. I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for 20 years. I'm in the Deep South. A lot of my people in my congregation are young earth creationist, homeschooler types. And man, it's like the perfect storm when COVID happened. it was just the perfect storm of like science denial and all kinds of craziness. So when I saw y'all doing this, I thought I'd call in and ask you a couple questions about some possible compromises to be able to help people medically. Professor Dave, I saw your debate with Kent Hovind. I had friends who worked for Kent Hovind. A little bit about my background there, and I also really enjoyed the flood, the Noah's flood issues. Your videos with him, on the local flood as well. So anyway, I think that a lot of Christians are, they just have a difficulty accepting any kind of science because they feel like they're moving and they've got a lot of internal conflicts and skepticism about their own faith. So any type of movement on any type of medicine or science is going to shake them up in their faith. So, I mean, would you be willing to compromise with people and show them how they can accept science without letting go of their faith? What are your thoughts on that?
Dave, you want to go first?
Sure, I can try. I mean, it is tricky. I mean, I think people we can help people understand that faith and science can coexist if need be. That faith in a higher power doesn't specifically contradict science. I don't know. I mean, there's so many aspects of science that people don't reject because it doesn't seemingly infringe on anything. I mean, we all use technology every day. We use computers, we use phones, we use all these things. I mean, these are products of science. So it is always puzzling to me why it seems to be a different conversation when it gets to health and medicine and things like that. Why there's some kind of sacredness. I mean, I guess because it has to do with the human body. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have like a specific example of something that somebody has said or has done?
I don't know. I think that it just sets people up to, all of the craziness that's online and the weird fringe science theories that's online. Christians are just very, very set up to fall into those things because they're already so skeptical of science.
So let me be clear about something
I
that you're proposing. Let me be clear about something where I want to get clarity on this. You are a pastor, and you're telling me, or you're implying, that you have directed your congregation that they should be vaccinated. Yes?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah.
I want to thank you just kind of indirectly for saving my mother's life, for example. Because she bought into all kinds of ridiculous conspiracies, the QAnon crap, all of it, and she would have been a complete anti-vaxxer had her church not encouraged the congregation to get vaccinated. And with her compromised situation, if she lived like so many of these other people that I know, she just would have been dead already.
Yeah. I have family that I think are in a real similar situation. I see the same thing. I saw the same thing before COVID with other types of medical treatments. People in congregation who get cancer and they want to try some type of weird, natural thing because they just doubt, mainstream medicine and mainstream science. And that they just believe the power of prayer is all they need. And, whenever I'm praying, I'm praying that their doctors will have wisdom to guide them in the right direction. Those are the types of things that I'm trying to do. I feel like,
I think that you should have guests you could have scientists who are Christian, scientists, doctors, or anybody that's about these fields who is Christian, right? To come in and offer information, answer questions, right? Because I think that the majority of people, I mean, it's like so many people, so many millions of people don't even know what a vaccine is. Like this whole thing going around of like people calling the COVID vaccines not vaccines or they're gene therapy or something like that is insane. It's people who they literally don't know what a vaccine is. They certainly don't know what gene therapy is or what DNA does or anything like that. So I think just someone in that's like from your team, from the camp, you know, because there are plenty of scientists who are Christians who read the Bible and pray and all that stuff and go, hey, like let me help you understand this so that you don't have to be afraid of it. You know, it could help.
Yeah. I feel like, and I won't monopolize any more of the time here. I appreciate the show. I'd like to listen to some other callers, but I do feel like that it's a problem with the kind of boomer generation. I just feel like they're real stuck in the mud. And I do, you know, have some hope for the younger generation that have grown up on the internet and have a little bit more access to varied opinions and varied direction and what they're.
If you think my generation is bad,
from within their bubble,
the generation of my parents was even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rough.
I'm going to do a douchey thing again, but this one's positive. Wes, before you go, I wanted to ask you. We're launching they're debate shows, but it's not an owning you in debate shows. And there's one coming up called Duologue that we're launching where we're going to have two people, sort of like what you're seeing right now. It'd be like Aron and Dave, but we would replace one of the two with somebody who has technically an opposing position. And then people will call in with a question and basically each responder responds to a caller's question. You're basically co-hosting, but from the other side. And the whole idea of this is to say, not necessarily like who's more right and who's more wrong. It's to actually demonstrate the consequences of the difference in belief. So, maybe I'm not saying you for sure are a progressive Christian. I haven't heard enough yet to know that, but we might have a progressive Christian against a progressive skeptic. So people can call in and see the clarifying differences between things with overlap, but also things with differences. And if you're interested in participating in that, I would love it if you would email me. Our contact info is in the description because you sound like somebody who would actually be, don't get me wrong, we will have people who are completely opposing and basically dog shit dirtbags, but we're also going to have people who are not. And you sound like one of the are nots. If you would be interested in participating in something like that, I think we'd be interested to have you on. So if you'll shoot me a message,
sure, I'll get in touch.
That'd be great. Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah, have a good night, guys.
Thanks, Wes.
Thanks.
Okay, so prioritizing theists. Our next one on the list is John. He, him, and he is a theist who has proof that vaccines don't work.
Yes.
John.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So tell me about how you got through smallpox.
Yeah.
I don't know what smallpox is.
You know why you don't know what smallpox is?
Funny you should ask.
Because vaccines work. And that's the proof.
Okay, well,
smallpox. Smallpox was the number one killing virus, the number one killer on Earth, and it was eradicated by vaccines. Immediately eradicated. It was a small period there where the only existence that smallpox had was in vials in laboratories.
Okay. More specifically, the COVID vaccines don't work. I'm not too looked into the other ones, but COVID vaccine does not work.
Okay, why?
Well, I got it. I got the first one, and then I got COVID. So, I mean, it doesn't work.
Which variant did you get?
Well, so
which variant did you get infected with?
I got the vaccine, and then I got COVID
Delta,
2 weeks later.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
with the Delta
COVID
variant,
is
right?
a wonderful example of evolution in action. So we've had so many different varieties of COVID that have been derived just in 2020, 2021, where we suddenly have, from one variant we get another variant, from it we get a whole alphabet full of other variants, and Omicron and I forget all the names now, but with all these different varieties.
Oh yeah, Omicron. Sorry, that was the one that we all got. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a very different sort of a disease. This is based on the same kind of virus as it's a coronavirus, which is the same as what you get with the common cold. But there are specifics
Right.
to this one that it was like it's the SARS. So you remember, like Japan, there were some places in Asia that were dealing more heavily with SARS than we were, and this is a variant of that. So this is all evolution evolution in action. And the vaccines that we got, the statistics on these was that you could still get the virus, but what it would happen was that your chances of being, say, hospitalized if you got the virus, your chances of getting the virus was already cut. So you had a less chance of getting it. If you did get the virus, your chances of being hospitalized were significantly cut. If you did get hospitalized, your chances of dying were significantly cut. And then in the end case, with the people who did get hospitalized, died in hospital, all of them were unvaccinated.
I know of people who died who got the vaccine and then got COVID and died.
Yeah, a different variant.
Okay.
Look, let's come at it this way. Let's see how this works. Do you know how vaccines work? What do they do in the body?
I don't know.
Okay, see, that's a very big problem, right? Because this is why you're unable to look at this objectively. So a vaccine primes the primary immune response. So it used to be that we would inject either an attenuated virus or a piece of the virus, like the envelope protein, which is the thing that allowed the virus to get entry to your cells. And the reason that is useful is that if you introduce that to the body, let's say the envelope protein, then the body will produce antibodies. It will recognize the foreign antigen and produce antibodies, which takes a week or something like that, such that if your body's exposed to the virus, it already has little warriors ready to destroy the virus. So it will not be able to infect as easily or at all, because you already have the defense. You already have a way to kill the virus already set, right? So
we
the
already
problem
have an
is
immune
that
system for that.
yeah, this is what I'm telling you is that so the immune system, there's a primary, so it can't just immediately kill any foreign invader. It has to recognize an antigen to set off an immune response, and then it goes and it sends its antibodies right to tag it for destruction by phagocytes and other cells. So the immune system is profoundly complicated. Okay, and so what I'm telling you is that this is exactly what a vaccine does: is it introduces that foreign particle. Whether it used to be just a whole virus, an attenuated virus, so like a virus that is kind of knocked out, so it can't infect you, and then your body sees it, it finds the envelope protein, it marks it as an antigen and goes, okay, well, let's build all of our little warriors to destroy this thing if it ever comes back. Good so far?
Okay. Yeah.
So
I mean,
here's
from
the
everything
problem.
you're saying, it sounds like
Hang on, let me just do one more thing because it's going to help you understand why people can still get infected by a different variant. So let's say the virus changes and envelope protein is a little bit different. Okay, now the antibodies that your body produced from that vaccination that you got are not going to protect you from that new variant, because that envelope protein is a little bit different and the antibodies aren't going to recognize it. They're not going to tag it for destruction. So that's why it's such an enormous problem when people aren't getting vaccinated, because then there's a larger host pool where people are getting vaccinated or people are getting infected, and the virus mutates, the virus changes, you get new variants, and these new ones we're not guaranteed to have to be protected from the vaccines that we've already gotten. That's why so many people got the Omicron, right? I got that first vaccine and I got Omicron, and almost everybody I know did too, because it was different. Our body, or the antibodies that we'd produced, didn't protect from that strain. So that's why.
Yeah, I also want to throw out there that yes, there are plenty of people who died when they got COVID who were already compromised by other illnesses. And if you already have any of these other illnesses, and then you get COVID on top of it, especially the first variants, which What happens with a lot of viruses is that through population mechanics, if the virus is too efficient at killing people, then it's not very efficient at spreading itself. And the evolutionary goal, if one could ever say that there is such a thing, is to produce and proliferate as many as possible. And so what ends up happening as a matter of population mechanics is that viruses like the Spanish flu, by the way, which is not Spanish, it's from Kansas. That was propaganda. We called it the Spanish flu so that we could push our blame onto somebody else. But the Spanish flu still exists. It's not as lethal as it used to be. It works out for the virus better to spread if it doesn't kill everybody that gets it. So that's one of the aspects of evolution that we see going on in viruses.
Okay, I hear all that, and that makes sense because when it evolves and it becomes different. So I understand why when you get a vaccine, then time goes by, a new variant comes out, and you can still get it. But doesn't that mean that the vaccine is useless then because a new variant's just going to happen? Making the vaccine worthless.
We have
Not
to
if
get a flu
everyone
shot
gets
every
vaxxed,
year.
so-
You have to get a flu shot every year because the flu virus comes out with a new version every year. So there's always an arms race with evolution. So you have the virus trying to find its way to survive in an environment where everybody's vaccinated. It's got to find the weakness somewhere, and so you end up doing this evolutionary race. And with the COVID virus, the COVID was
more than once
producing
a
many.
year.
I know the COVID virus was producing many different variants. So all the and some of them would be more. They would be spread more easily, but they wouldn't be as deadly, or they were resistant to this type of treatment, but also weren't as symptomatic. Or some other strategies that can be incidentally put into effect is that they can be dormant for a time and still be contagious, but not symptomatic, and things like this happen quite often with viruses. And it's not like they're planning, but it does incidentally, as an emergent property, does look like it's strategic planning. These are different things that if the virus does this entirely incidentally, accidentally, then this virus may proliferate beyond other variants of the same thing.
Okay.
But also the point is that the closer, the greater percentage of the population that gets vaccinated, the smaller the host pool that will be available for the virus to then evolve and generate a new strain. That's why it's so important and that's, the COVID response. I mean, the reason that we saw so many variants is that there were so many people who refused to get vaccinated. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we had people
makes
all
sense.
over the world. So we have new variants that arrive that show up in South Africa, and another one that shows up in France, another one shows up in Japan, another one shows up in Chicago. And they're all popping up everywhere because there's people everywhere who refuse to wear masks, who refuse to wash their hands, who refuse to do a goddamn thing if it's for the benefit of anyone else. Because we live in a world of me. What about my rights? And when everybody's that selfish and stupid, well, now we've got a breeding ground for everything.
Well, you can't force people to wear masks. That's
the purpose of wearing the
masks.
masks. The purpose of wearing the masks was not to protect you. That was the problem people didn't understand, because you had like 30% less chance of getting it if you wore the mask, but it was like from somebody else. Yet if I had the disease and I didn't know it, and I wear the mask, then you are 70% less likely to get it from me because of the mask. Mm-hmm. So that was the problem people had. They didn't understand. They think that if you're wearing the mask, it's because you're scared. No, it's a courtesy. I'm wearing my mask to protect you, but we live in a culture where nobody wants to do a fuck all thing for anybody else. It all has to be me.
Yeah, we can't, there can't be police walking around, and then forcing everyone at gunpoint to wear masks, but we can figure, like businesses are free to enforce masking and things like that. I mean, we can.
No,
it's just, I mean, America
is
not the kind of country that would allow that to happen. It would be chaos.
Yeah.
It's not China.
I would just be against police enforcement. But my question is, so would it be possible to create a vaccine that would work for all of COVID or all of the flu, like a all-encompassing vaccine?
Yeah, but it's
if we
nothing is
could,
permanent.
someone would have done
Evolution
it.
doesn't stop. Evolution doesn't stop. The only reason we had success with smallpox is because smallpox was completely unregulated. It was the first thing hit by vaccines, and when they showed that smallpox could be beaten, or that you could avoid getting smallpox, which was the number one killer, it terrified everybody. If you want to know why there's practically no Native Americans left on this continent, it's smallpox. So when they had a vaccine that would stop you from getting smallpox, and also the number two killer, which is polio, when you get these vaccines, and everybody got them. Everybody got these vaccines because nobody wants fucking smallpox.
Tuberculosis. Mm-hmm.
Everybody got the vaccine, and then there's no smallpox. Hands down, across the board, everybody did it all at once. That's the way to protect for these things.
Yeah,
But
these diseases were so scary that, there was no vaccine hesitancy because of how scary these things were.
And you couldn't get anybody on board. Everybody's got to come up with some stupid bullshit theory about how the vaccine is going to mind control you, and how somehow anybody with money, is somehow behind the secret global conspiracy of mind control. And people are so fucking stupid. That's why we have so many different variants. That's why it went on for so long. That's why so many people died.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
My
Thanks
pleasure.
for listening.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
Have a good night.
and do we have another theist?
Before we move on,
the line?
I waited
Yes.
for the whole call to interrupt this time at least. If we could talk about the RFR thing this Saturday.
Yes. So this coming Saturday, and I don't know I guess Dave's not in this, but I definitely need to talk about this one. So on the 24th, we are going to be having, and I think there's going to be a link below, right? Is that right, Jimmy?
Sorry, I opened the thing. There is a link in the description already. We'll get mods to put it in the chat right now, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's been a long time since I've done a charity telethon. We're doing a fundraiser trying to raise $25,000 for Recovering from Religion. This was an organization that was founded by Dr. Aron Ra, and they are an international call center and chat line that can take your calls or chats for people who want to talk to somebody who already has experience and training in dealing with religious trauma. And if you were raised religious, then you understand what that means. Sadly, I know a handful of people who were always atheist and really lack the ability to empathize with what a lot of us grew up with. But these people have a background in that. And so one of the statistics I saw was that they helped almost 9,000 clients around the world just last year. And they've been helping more and more people every year. As you know, atheism is on the rise in every state. Atheism is on the rise across the globe. Yes, Islam is still rising. Yes, Christianity is still rising in terms of birth rate. But neither one of those, all of those projections for the expanse and growth of religion fail to take one thing into account. They fail to take in attenuation. And attenuation is what is killing all of the Christianity and Islam. Even in Saudi Arabia, they're complaining that they have where they have a death sentence or a prison term for atheists, for apostates, they're still experiencing apostasy. So people are walking away from faith in droves everywhere. The problem is that we have a culture that is in many places legislatively defended, and walking away from faith is a criminal offense in some places, and at least it results in social. You're being ostracized by your family and friends, and you can be penalized, or you're certainly subject to prejudice and confrontation and that sort of thing. So a lot of people want to maintain some relationships with the important people in their life who are still believers and still can't be reasoned with, but they also want to walk away from those imposed prohibitions and restrictions that they were raised with, and the guilt that often comes just inherently attached to these things. So when you express an understanding of morality that is beyond what the sacred fables will permit, then you need counseling, and you need a new network of people to get on with your life. And in some cases, you need qualified therapists, and Recovering from Religion can connect you both on Zoom or in person with different meetup groups, with different social groups, or the trained therapists that we just talked about. And there are a number of different strategies that people can take depending on their personal situations. And recovering from religion is not just looking for $25,000 to maintain operation. They are also looking for volunteers to man the phone line. So I talk to people every day who have these coming out experiences, that the issues that they've had to deal with from their oppressive families and everything. And some of these people, probably some of the people listening right now, would be very good on a phone helping somebody else suffering through a similar issue, and helping guide them to a better life. I've known so many people who have come away from religion and go through years of nightmares about hell and damnation, which in their waking life they no longer believe. But it's the inculcation is so ingrained that there are a lot of people that go years with this guilt of ever daring to say, I don't think I believe anymore. That's how insidious this is. So that's what recovering from religion is helping people out of. And so I strongly support them, and I'm delighted that I was invited to do this charity telethon with them this weekend.
Cool. Ah, fuck, I left John's name on the whole time. John had nothing to do with that. I should have changed the banner. I was paying attention to too many things at once. Yeah, that's so again, that's this Saturday. It starts in the afternoon, early afternoon. There's going to be multiple hours where we change different people out. I know that Dave Warnock will be there with Eve Was Framed. Owen Morgan is with somebody. I'll be there with some man. I can't remember the whole schedule. Shannon Q and Paula G will be there. Seth Andrews. It might be Seth Andrews and Owen together. I don't remember. But a bunch of really great people are going to be there. And then the event is ending. The final segment will be the first time build since the last time. The Unholy Trinity responding to messages and questions that come in specifically from $100 donations. So that will be Matt, Aron, and Seth together, which hasn't happened in a while. Taking in that final segment, which is going to be awesome.
It's funny that we're called the Unholy Trinity and we still have Seth among us.
But I don't get it.
He doesn't really qualify as unholy.
Oh, he's so wholesome. It's annoying. Dave, if you could just give a thumbs up and an I endorse this message, go to the fundraiser. We'll use that.
Sure. No, it sounds great. I think, yeah, of course, I endorse this. I think people should have any kind of assistance they need in order to break free from the tyranny of this kind of oppression.
Thank you for responding well to my bullying you into helping. All right, y'all.
I'm Aron Ra, and I approve this message.
That's right. Y'all can proceed.
So we're gonna,
thanks.
And the next few calls are all from atheists, so I'm going to go systematically. And the next one up is Roke Show from South Carolina. And evolution of romance as far as love is concerned. Let's start with a salacious argument.
The what?
Roke Show.
A salacious argument. The hell?
Well, you're talking about evolution of romance.
Yeah. I guess to clarify, what is love? Is it a feeling? Is it an action? Who the fuck cares? All we know is that it's quite complex and it feels nice.
It always was so simple to me. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I get it. I get it. You can't resist the boomer jokes.
I'm also a dad right after Father's Day. I'm gonna tell these kind of jokes.
Yeah. So Dave.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure you've. I'm not sure if you studied evolutionary psychology. There was just one.
Not a ton,
help
but
with,
a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know how the feeling of love, like, sort of evolved?
How it evolved.
This is a weird one.
Yeah, I mean, mechanistically, or why it's favored by natural selection, or Yeah, I mean, I think Aron probably could take this better than me.
I often argue that one of the advantages that we had in our evolution was that there was a time when we no longer had the short reaction fibers that our cousins, the chimpanzees and gorillas, had. We were more long distance endurance runners than the super strong, super heroic kind of strength that they wield.
Yeah.
And we didn't yet have the brilliant minds that we later had. So there was a point when we were both weak of mind and of body, and yet we prevailed against all other hominines because the one thing we had was a sense of unity, community, and empathy. So in many herd animals, for example, the predator would come charging in, everybody scatters, the predator selects the weak ones, and the other ones count themselves lucky they got away. But what people did was something very different. If that person still stands a chance of being defended, if that person can still be saved, it wasn't immediately killed, then the entire community turns on the beast. And now, none of us could take on a Smilodon or a Dinofelis or what have you. I mean, none of us could beat any of those things, but all of us could beat anything. And we would come with sticks and rocks and everything. And we had altruism. We had the ability to turn the masses on the predator. And it wasn't just against predation, of course. We had these other little socialist things that we did, where we would herd, the women and children, the family unit, and we would have the defenders standing in the periphery. We would we held all of these different social systems where we could support the entire community, because no man is an island. Nobody could be completely on their own alone in an absolute abject wilderness like this. We need society, and society in turn also depends on us to cohabitate productively. So what ended up happening over the course of population mechanics is that those people who stood by their word and could be relied upon, those who showed natural empathy for their family, friends, and fellows, these are the ones that tended to be favored the most. These were the ones that were trusted. These are the ones that could call the most allies to the fray. These are the ones that acquired the most mates and had the most children. And preferentially, these are the ones that produced the most. And so this empathy managed to surpass everything else. And you still have aberrations coming up in evolution all the time. You have people with dysfunctional mirror neurons or underdeveloped prefrontal cortex or whatever it was, prefrontal lobes, I'm sorry. But these people who are unnecessarily selfish, they're only concerned about themselves, and they don't give a damn about anybody else. Such people tend to be ostracized from society, either by being banished, imprisoned, or killed. So again, in terms of mathematics, the ones who care the most about other people, and of course other species, the kindest, the most compassionate, the most reliable and honest, these are the ones that prevail. And the selfish, which are usually equated with evil, are the ones that diminish in human society.
Yeah, I want to bring up what I use against theism is I love using psychopaths. I love using psychopaths. People who don't have prefrontal, people who can't function, or people who that part of the brain doesn't function. So yeah, as that was a quick rant. So I guess what I gathered is that the more empathetic, more caring you are, the more likely, the more you have children, or the more you're going to pass down children, and then it evolved. Then it later sort of evolved to an abstract concept where people have feelings for each other. Yada yada.
I've seen some very inspirational videos of, like, this one of my favorite was an incident at Kruger where some young water buffalo, the herd is being chased by lions, and one water buffalo gets tries to jump into a lake to escape, and a crocodile grabs it, and then the lion grabs it, and then there's a tug of war between the lion and the crocodile, and then there's like 5 lions, and the 5 lions drag the calf out, and now the crocodile is now realizing it has to face 5 lions. Okay, so it lets go and runs away because it doesn't have unity. It's not going to have a community that's going to come to its aid, so it backs off. Now you've got pride lions. They're social, right? They're a social predator. They hunt in a pack. So now you've got these 5 lions, and they've pulled out this cub because look what unity got them. Except that when they turned around, the entire herd of 120 water buffalo has turned back around, and now they're looking at a sea of horns mere feet away. And the lions are like, I think I've suddenly realized I left the kettle on. I have to get the hell out of here. And this is how we survive.
You know that saying that lions are courageous? Not anymore.
Not when faced with 120 water buffalo.
I think that romantic love and altruism and empathy and all those things might simply be an offshoot of the instinct of the mother to care for the offspring, which is largely mammalian. I don't know if it's exclusively mammalian, but I think it's just that the evolutionary advantage conferred to organisms that want to take care of their offspring. I think that ended up sort of crystallizing and manifesting all these other things like romantic love and all that stuff.
Okay. All right. So, do we have anything more, or should we jump to the next call?
You mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned there was a one-on-one, or we can. When I gave that super chat earlier. Or that super chat about like us having a one-on-one discussion. You mentioned. The problem is I don't remember
this, but I don't remember this, but you're welcome to remind me.
I gave you, or after I guess
let's just move on. Rogue Show, why don't send Aron an email? It's easy, aronra@gmail.com, and we're just going to move on here there. All right, thanks, Rogue.
Okay.
Yep, thanks. I'll get a flood of emails.
Thank you.
No worries. All right. Thanks a lot, Rogue Show.
I thought your email was public. Is it not?
It is now.
I swear it's public. Well, that's payback because now since everyone knows what town I live in, thanks to you. Payback. Just kidding. Everybody send to aronra@gmail.com with the subject line Jimmy Snuffles, something like that.
Jimmy Snuffles. There you go. All right. So next, we don't have any other theists that I see here. So I'm going to talk to Andrew, him in Australia. And what would you like to talk about, Andrew?
Yeah, how are you going, guys? So basically, to give a little bit of background, I've been trying to learn a little bit more about religion to be more empathetic towards their viewpoint. And I also don't know nearly anything about biology apart from what I've seen in a few of Dave's videos. So I do have to say thank you for creating and sharing that stuff. I haven't seen all of it, but it's been like really helpful to get some understanding as to what's going on. Now, my understanding is that, and stop me at any point if I'm wrong, because like I said, I'm not an expert in this field. My understanding is that after every mass extinction, there has been a rapid increase in species diversity. So my understanding is that the reduction in the gene pool has caused more mutations and thus more species to come about more quickly.
No, not necessarily. What you end up with different, and I realize the question was aimed at Dave, but if you don't mind, Dave, I'm going to jump in on this one.
No, that's fine. I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, there have been different. Let's take for example the Permian Triassic extinction event, which is called the Great Dying. This was there was 75% of all life on land and 90% of life in the oceans were wiped out at once. And when I say at once, we're talking about over 100,000 year period, as the Siberian traps were this huge thing that went on for quite a long time that raised the global temperatures to the point that it released all these trillions of tons worth of methane from the ocean level and raised the temperature of the planet again. So a global warming climatic disaster killed practically everything. What you had prior to that was you had the equivalent of what we have today for gophers and for elephants and for manatees and for basically any animal that occupies its own individual niche. Today, we had in the Permian, it was just entirely different things. Like the elephant would have had tusks, yes, but also a beak and no trunk. And so there was all these weird things. They were occupying the same kind of niche. They're doing the same kind of job. They just look completely different. So when you wipe out the entire population and you have nothing but, say, shrews left, let's just say we have a world in which all the mammals wiped out except for shrews and shrew-like things. These shrews are not going to be able to survive just doing what they always do. Not all of them. Some of them are going to have to diversify. They're going to have to find other avenues that they can pursue. Some of them are going to start eating other shrews and become more accomplished predators. Some of them are going to have to go to different food sources. Some of them are going to have to move into the trees. Some of them move into the water. And some of them go about different climes. And so what you have is this open area where you've got every niche is available. And in a very short period of time, you've got what was originally all shrews are now occupying all these different avenues. So there's always going to be something playing the part of a crocodile, the ambush predator who waits on the water's edge just under the water where you can't see it. There's always something doing that. Sometimes it's phytosaurs, sometimes it's whales, or the ancestors of whales, and sometimes it's actual alligators and so on.
Okay, so I'm trying to extrapolate on that. So what? Sorry, Dave. Please go on.
Diversification is more rewarded when there's all these empty niches that are ready to be filled. Is essentially what we're saying.
Yeah. So in order for that to happen, there has to be enough population for it to be able to spread. Is that not correct? Because what we're talking about now is because I was going a slightly different route. But I think we should stick on this for a little bit longer. In order for it to diversify from the external pressures like what you're talking about, there has to be sufficient population for it to actually diversify.
Biodiversity
in that way. So,
does.
for example, if we're talking. Yes, please go on.
Biodiversity does depend on a large gene pool. Yes.
Yeah. So the angle that I was taking, like I said, I'm trying to come at this from a religious point of view. So I'll jump straight ahead so that you can see where my mind's at. The young Earth creationists will talk about the ark. And what we've effectively got is two of each species, which means we've got no gene pool left at all. And that there was a mass amount of evolution that happened. Now, that only way that could have happened for a mass amount of evolution is that there had to have been significant amount of mutations occur in those species as it was populating. So when we look at these mass extinctions in the past, we assume that a species has been wiped out. To steelman their argument, could it be that hasn't actually, those species haven't been wiped out, rather what they've done is they've been reduced to such a small amount that the significant amount of inbreeding in that involved caused so many mutations that we ended up with a vast amount of new species?
I'm inclined not to think that that's an inbreeding situation. While it can be, that's not what it usually is. There are some animals that when they don't keep up with the changes, they end up being not able to compete. And this is a very simplistic answer, probably too simplistic, but that I think was more realistic, though.
Andrew, if you've got some final questions here, this is just an ultra niche topic, and we're literally bleeding listeners because it's so niche. So if you've got a final question or topic to run
was there
on,
a pun intended in
we
that,
want to
Jimmy?
jump on there. Not intentionally, but you can have it.
Ultra niche. That is all we were talking about just there.
If anything, my brain is so terrible. I just used a word I had heard very recently. It's actually not impressive at all. Anyway, okay. Andrew, go ahead with your final thoughts there.
That's fine. If it's a topic that doesn't interest the audience, that's fine. You can call it quits. We'll do bio nights. We'll do niche nights. Tonight's just not. It's not that hyper focused. People are mostly tuning in for discussions, especially about theism and it's vaccines.
I'm happy to talk about evolution with you. And if you want to do a one-on-one, I'd be happy to do that on my channel.
Yeah, look,
but let's save it for that.
You just have to email
With
them.
either of the two of you, I'd absolutely love to actually discuss this because I feel like there's a serious gap in my knowledge that means that I can't argue against this, and I'd love to have that filled in.
Okay. I'd be happy
Aaron,
to.
what's the best way for him to get a hold of you?
Fuck you, okay? Easiest thing in the world, my name, Gmail. Just like it reads on my channel, Gmail.
All right. Thanks a lot, Aaron. And thanks, Dave.
Aaron.
Next one.
Aaron, sorry, mate. The guys.
No worries. All right, so now I'm going to take we have a theist here. We have Emmanuel. And so Emmanuel wants to talk about the school system and how they teach science and how it's manipulative, all according to my fiendish plan. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Hi, Aaron. Hi, Dave. So I just would like to say to Jimmy, I'm not trying to proselytize. I'm just trying to have a conversation.
Well, wait. You're not going to step past that. You're not going to direct something toward me in response to something I said in the past, and I'm just going to let that go. You've admitted that you know that you're not going to succeed in these calls. You've admitted that the reason you call is because you believe you must to have an attempt at converting people to your thing. You've sat on this program and said the phrase, yes, evolution is a fact, but it disagrees with the Bible, so I think it's wrong. So don't sit there and say you're not here to proselytize when you have already acknowledged that you're not here to engage the truth or facts, and you have said that you are here in the hopes that your message reaches other people. That's by definition proselytization. If you would like to argue that point, you can, but I am willing to now let you make your challenge to Dave and Aaron here. I think you, if anything, should be calling and saying, Jimmy, thank you for continuing to let me call in because it's really a favor to me since I've shown how dishonest I am. But you don't have to do that. So, yeah, there you go, Emmanuel.
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy, for making me continue this conversation.
You're welcome.
So, Aaron, we've had one-on-one conversation, if you remember, about a month ago. And I was just trying to,
I have conversations and arguments with people literally all the time. My wife and my mother and other people in my family hate me because I will not get off my phone because what are you doing? I'm arguing with idiots on the interwebs. That's all day.
I've been doing that a little bit. My wife can't stand it. Yeah. Twitter's killing me these days. I got to just get off of it.
Yep.
We were talking about evolutionary theory, and it's like the problem that I had with that theory specifically was I had a personal experience where I used to join the Assemblies of God at one point, and this guy he was a very devoted Christian, and he actually backslid to Christianity. And so
you mean he progressed? Because when you guys say backslide, when you say backward, it means forward.
No, we're talking about this is a theory which basically disagrees with the first page of the Bible. So
you know why that is?
Get out here.
Do you know why that is?
Okay.
The first page of the Bible. You know why it? Because the first page of the Bible was made up by people who didn't know what they were talking about. They took existing mythologies from the Epic of Gilgamesh and from the Tale of Adapa and from the oldest of all creation myths, Enuma Elish. They took all of these collective mythologies and took little bits of them and made them into the story of Adam and Eve. And so all of it is made up. It's all genetically impossible. Even evangelical Christians admit that Adam and Eve are not genetically possible and that we know that didn't happen. The story involves a metaphorical tree of knowledge of good and evil versus a tree of eternal life. The choice alone shows you that it's a metaphor, that it's only a parable. This is a fable with a moral. It's not historical. It didn't happen.
You're trying to like the thing that like I disagree is like you're putting out like evangelicals like within like a box. So
Okay,
I think
how am I doing
there
that?
are
Are
no,
you
it's like there
defending?
are
Are you trying to propose that Adam and Eve were real people, and that the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of eternal life were real, literal trees that you could chop down and burn in a fireplace?
No, what I'm talking about is like since science is
So
like
you're
a good
not doing that?
thing.
You're not saying that Adam and Eve were real people?
No. I believe the
So you are
literal
saying that.
creation story. So
It's so hard to get a yes
okay.
or no. I ask questions. I want answers to be yes,
yes,
no, or a number, and
yes.
it's so hard to get that.
Okay, yes is the answer. So
So
like what I'm
yes,
trying to
you
get
think
out.
Adam and Eve were real people. It doesn't matter that they're genetically impossible. It doesn't matter that we have older myths that identify these characters. It doesn't matter that the story that you're referring to is a later edition that is an adaptation of elder mythology. It doesn't matter that we have all of this data that proves otherwise. It doesn't matter the entirety of the fossil record or the human genome or anything else that we have that shows that this is just a fable. It doesn't even matter the fable. The contradictions in the fable itself don't even bother you. You're determined to believe a fairy story over anything. Fuck all. That's it. Is that what you're telling me?
No, that's not Aron. Like I understand. You know, even like the school that I went to is like it is part of the curriculum. They teach us evolutionary theory in the past. But my thing is, why don't we use like science to betterment of society and not to like?
You mean why do we use science where religion has always only ever failed? That is why we use science, because religion has always only ever failed.
No, it's like I have headaches, right? So I go to the doctor to use science, right? So I could use science when it's my benefit.
We can use science for toxicology, which is based on evolution. And we use science for livestock breeding and for agriculture, which is all dependent on evolution. And we use science for virology and for bacterial medicine, which is all dependent on evolution. Right?
What I'm saying
we just had the conversation about COVID-19 a little bit earlier and how that was evolving. All of that is science that depends on evolution, right?
What I disagree with the vaccines is it's like, you know, the COVID vaccine. It's like set aside the other vaccines. So I think there is like a harmful effect on, like, you know, I've experienced it because when I took the vaccine, I remember the harm that it does. So what I'm saying is, like, why don't we use this knowledge and this
what harm are you
method?
talking about? What harm are you talking about?
No,
that's just what that's just
I'm talking about like
you feel sick.
No, what I'm talking about is why don't we use the scientific method to better society and not to distract society?
I mean, why do we do that?
Like millions of people are totally doing every day, all the time.
Right. The reason we actually do that is because it works. And the reason we don't use religion is because it's always a fuck all embarrassment that has only ever failed. That's it across the board all the time. That's why we have
justification
doctors in hospitals
from him for this question.
Yeah. And faith healers are off in their own tents somewhere. Faith healers do not work in hospitals because religion is a lie and it is always full of failure.
Why are you saying? Why are you asking if we should use science? Like, you want us to use science to better society? Why are you under the impression that that's not what people are doing every day, all the time?
Because there are a lot of people who, like, just like my friend, people have lost faith in Christianity, in the Holy Scriptures.
Good.
Because there's
congratulations to them. Now, how can we help you follow suit?
It's not just my friend. I saw a Pew Research that Christianity in the West is pretty much on the decline. They said that there was more than 60%. But so, like, what I'm concerned is, since I believe after we die, there's judgment. Okay, I'm sorry. Hello?
Yeah.
Why is it a problem for you? If this is your belief system, why do you depend on others believing it too? What's the big deal?
Because I don't want people to, after they die, to go to eternal hell. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
But you know that there's no
But hell
hell.
doesn't exist.
That's not even a thing. We don't have
That's not a
souls.
thing.
So there is no hell. We don't have souls. There is no afterlife. There's just the reality. You get to live your life until you don't, and then you're done, and then there's no more.
it's like
So you
I
can
see a
waste your life.
pattern.
You can waste your life following a bunch of lies, which we can prove are lies, or you can live a fulfilling life and help other people to live a more fulfilling life and enjoy your life a hell of a lot more. Because everybody that walks away from Christianity, nobody, none of them, zero, say that they were better off when they were believers. No. Everybody realizes, hey, this was detrimental. I'm glad I'm not a Christian anymore. They become more curious. They become more tolerant. They become better humanitarians. They become more reasonable. They go back to college. They start learning things. So when you walk away from the mind virus that you currently are encumbered with, you will be a better person. Don't you want to be a better person?
I want to be a better person, but not in the terms that you
Bingo.
put
Then
out
give
there.
up your faith.
But like,
You want
here's
truth?
the thing, Aaron.
You
Like,
want to,
just
you want to
think about
understand truth, or you do want to believe lies? There's your choice. You want to make believe in things that
okay.
are not true?
No. Like, I care about the
Okay,
truth.
so you want to
I care
reject
about
faith,
science.
right? So you want to reject
No.
faith and adopt science and be where we are.
No.
Welcome.
I use science to betterment of myself, not for destruction of my eternal identity. You know what I'm saying?
You
It's
don't
like,
have an
I
eternal
will not
anything.
sacrifice.
Rejecting your faith is betterment.
You don't
It is
have
better to
sacrifice what you
behind
never had. There is no soul. We know that. There is no soul. There's no support for mind-body dualism. We actually have substantial evidence against it. There is no afterlife. That's it. You get this life. And I'm sorry that if you're close to the end of it before you figure that out, but this is the one you get.
Don't you think that that's a little bit of like a fallacy, where it's like, in the absence
No,
of evidence,
I think that your
thing
religious
doesn't
belief
exist?
is nothing but fallacies. I think that your religious belief is falsehoods, fallacies, and frauds, and that's it, and that's all, and there's no truth to it. It's just nothing but lies. That's what I think your belief is. And if you want to walk away from all of that, if you want to only embrace truth, if you only want to believe truth and only believe it tentatively because you want to make sure that it is the truth, you want to make sure that you never get fooled by another lie, you will have to get rid of faith, the most dishonest and auto-deceptive position it is possible to have.
Well, I've been on the side where I thought like Christianity was a lie. I don't think that's a good path, because
It's
I've experienced
definitely
it
a
before.
lie, yes. All religion is a lie,
Yeah,
every
like,
one of them.
but
It's not just
like,
Christianity, it's all of them.
when I stopped believing in Christianity, even though I grew up in a Christian household, I start committing a lot of sins. So there's a problem of like immorality when you go to
No, there
the
isn't.
path of like skepticism. That's what I think it is. Because
There's
Okay,
no
well, there
correlation
isn't.
between being more religious and being more moral. If anything, it is an inverse correlation.
Yeah, besides, Christianity isn't concerned with morality at all.
No, not even in
I
a
know
little
that
bit. Not even
Christians think that their religion is about morality, but it's not. Your religion only cares about gullibility. If your religion cared about morality, then good,
okay,
upstanding, moral atheists would be allowed into heaven, and Christians who were very vile and evil would not be allowed into heaven. But the way that your religion is structured, it doesn't matter how evil you are. All sins may be
Just say
forgiven if
sorry.
you but believe. But if you don't believe, then it doesn't matter how good you are, because the only sin that will not be forgiven is the sin of disbelief. Morality
It's
is
very
irrelevant.
stupid.
Only gullibility matters, because you have a belief system. That's all.
but Will you make like an inner like? Don't you think that when you criticizing the doctrine, like at least you should be aware of like the doctrine of election, because you're misunderstanding the
Am I
point
more
of
aware of it
election.
than you are? Yeah, definitely. Don't I think it's a little irritating that every time I argue with a believer that I always have to end up knowing both sides of this argument better than you know your own alone? Yeah, that's a little irritating.
That,
Every time I get into an argument with a creationist, they've never studied fuck all about evolution. They don't know anything about their own Bible either. I always have to educate them on both sides because y'all don't know dick about jack. It's a little irritating.
yeah, but like that's because I'm much younger than you. But like I don't want to get to that
No
point.
age,
So
nothing to do with
like, okay, so
I know people that are a third my age that are probably
no,
smarter than I will
you
ever
said
be.
like
Age doesn't have anything to do with it.
yeah, but because like I've studied the Holy Scriptures, and I
They're
started,
not
but
holy.
like
If you'd studied them, the first thing you'd realize is this is not holy. Did you read Job?
yeah, I've
Did you
read
read
Job.
Job?
That's by the way one
You
of
read
my
and you thought God
favorite
was
scriptures.
holy? Did
But
you really come
still,
out of
you're
that
not.
thinking, oh, God sure knows his stuff? He keeps his lightning bolts in a tool shed out back. Are you sure you read Job?
But yeah, I've read Job. But like the point is, like if I
But
make a
everything that
clay,
Job
right?
says implies that this story was made up by people who didn't know where lightning came from.
Okay, so you don't believe that there's a supernatural force that creates thunder and lightning. I understand your
Absolutely.
point.
Not only do I
Like me and
not
you
only
will
do I
disagree.
not know that, I know that that's not the answer. I know what the answer is,
But
and that it's not that.
but you missed the point of like when I make if I'm a potter and if I make a clay, don't I have the ability and the moral grounds to destruct it or to do it for honor? It's like if
That
there's a God,
question
like
didn't even make any
we Christians.
sense.
No, what I'm
Do you
saying is like
understand what you
certain people
you
are.
paraphrase what you just said, because what you just said didn't make any sense.
Can I
Okay,
destroy my
you
own?
said
Is that what you're asking?
you said unbelievers, even though they're moral people according to the Christian doctrine, they don't go to heaven. That's because they were not
No, that's not
elected
what I
before the
said.
foundation of the world.
But in
No,
fact,
before that.
there is no heaven. Nobody goes to heaven, fortunately, because heaven would be an awful place. You know why they invented hell? You know why people invented hell? Because they originally just had the concept of heaven. But when they came up with the concept of heaven, that meant that there's this one afterlife that people got to think about, and you don't have to think about it for more than 2 minutes before you realize there's huge fucking problems. So everybody gets a mansion in heaven, and the streets are made of gold. Does it make sense that the streets would be made of gold? Why do we need shelter? Why do we need mansions in heaven? What if your mansion's not the biggest mansion? Are you still trying to keep up with everybody else when it's in eternity and you're in heaven? You have to have shelter. Why would the fuck would you have to have that? So they realized that, hey, we can't have people thinking about heaven because within inside 2 minutes people will realize, hey, this is some made up bullshit. So they come up with hell. And it doesn't matter how long you think about hell, hell still sucks until you compare it with heaven. And then you realize, let's see, heaven is full of these reborn Christians, and hell is full of every wonderful, interesting person that ever lived in our history. I think I'd rather go to hell.
But okay, you said it was a made-up thing, but Jesus mentioned that there is an eternal torment in Matthew.
Right, and the whole
5.
concept of eternity alone disproves the notion of the Bible. That by itself, that one thing by itself should dissuade you from believing in the whole thing. When you realize that there's no way that you can perpetually ascend, there's no way that you can always be getting better or learning more or there's no way to constantly improve. You can only go so far. And so eventually, where are you? You're stuck in an episode of The Twilight Zone called The Good Life, where you're trapped in the house with little Anthony Fremont, who can read your mind, and you better be thinking nice thoughts. And there you are, for all of eternity, kissing the ass of little Anthony Fremont. When people get a chance to realize what the fuck heaven is, they run screaming away from the concept. Can't I just die? That's the better option. I don't want an eternal afterlife. Do you know what? Death is not as scary as heaven. Fuck hell. Heaven is scarier than death. Kill me, let me die, both in the body and the soul, so that I don't have to go to heaven. I don't want to kiss the ass of some fucking psychopath who doesn't deserve respect, much less worship. Just let me fucking die.
So you're saying that in the absence of evidence and proof, we are justified in saying that
in the
those
presence
claims
of
don't
evidence
work?
and proof against. In the presence of proof against.
But like, what's
We
the evidence
know
that you have that
there
is
are
no
no
afterlife?
souls. There is no supernatural. There is no afterlife. There is no God. We're done. That's it. Period. Quit making shit up.
Okay, so do you feel guilt? Let me show you how there is a soul. So do you have guilt? Well, when you do things that are wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Do I have guilt? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
like
not ready for this conversation.
Okay.
You are really not.
So how does that?
I'm going to end this conversation.
I am too. Emmanuel, shut up. I am too. Dave has limited time here. I want to hear more from Dave anyway before the show's over.
I have been dominating. I'm just going to mute my microphone and let Dave hug the show for a while.
Yeah, well, there's only one call left, and then super chats. But okay. I wanted to say, and Dave, do you want a piece of Emmanuel before we hang up?
I mean, I don't want to do a back and forth, but I can just chime in really briefly here. I don't understand how people can't see how transparently that heaven and hell as concepts are purely to manipulate the masses, right? The idea of heaven, right? That heaven is for the meek and the poor and the whatever they said is basically just, hey, people who we are in power over, it's okay that your life sucks until you die because you get rewarded in heaven. So shut up. Don't uprise, be poor, do what we say, and then you'll get heaven later, so it's fine. And then hell is just the boogeyman to like I feel like even as a small child, the logic that a small child possesses should be able to piece together that heaven and hell are absolutely insane concepts that are meant to manipulate people into behaving how authorities want you to behave. That's really all I have to say.
Yeah, that's great. Emmanuel, I'm just going to tell you why I'm hanging up on you. And then we're done. I haven't banned you yet, though you didn't do the thing I told you last time, which is but if you're going to call in this often and basically deem yourself an honorary co-host, get a fucking microphone that doesn't sound like you are talking into a potato. Today was at least breaking up less, but Emmanuel, if you are going to call in with you want to challenge science and stuff, and you're going to jump to something like, do you have guilt?
No,
it means shut up. Shut up. If you want to jump to character assaulting to then try and establish this, Aron, because you're imperfect, you have guilt, whatever bullshit, where you're literally trying to now make it person focused and do the same emotionally manipulative tactics that missionaries do. And this is why they prey on people who are slumped in life, who are sad, who are they are going after the type of people who feel hopeless, and you're trying to establish hopelessness with a badass like Aron Ra. Aron has too much hope, not hopelessness. So go fuck yourself, Emmanuel. Try again another day, and don't call in and start with proselytization and then go to the scummiest missionary tactics that exist. Goodbye, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. I want to address an unnamed chat comment. Somebody wants to know why I won't have a moderated debate with some rando that I don't, as far as I know, I've never heard of. Why I won't debate somebody I never heard of, or that I don't think I've ever heard of, because I argue with a whole bunch of people. The way that debates work for me is that there will be a format, there will be a venue, there will be a moderator that says, hey, we would like on our network, we would like you to debate. It doesn't matter who the person is. It matters what the topic is. Would you debate this topic? And then, okay, yeah, is this a topic where there's a point for me to debate it? Yeah, fine, I'll do that. The person I'm debating, don't give a fuck. Doesn't matter. Yeah, just to clarify. And go ahead, Jimmy.
No, that's good. You've got one other call left that if you can try and take it quickly, because I think, Dave, you need to be out of here in about 15, right?
Yeah.
So if we can hit
Dave,
that one
you
quick.
got this one?
Yeah.
All right.
And then
We are
we'll do the
talking to
super chats.
Jules in Poland.
That's
Jules,
right.
are you there? Good to hear
Yes,
from
sir.
you, sir.
Good to hear from you guys as well. Excuse me if I'm a little bit starstruck, perhaps, because you guys have been nothing less than my idols over the last couple of years. Aaron, I am in the middle of reading your first book, 12 Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism.
Jules, we got to go faster than this. Just get to the question. I love you, buddy, but we're at the end of the show.
Yeah, you're right. I suppose it's a bit of a wasted opportunity for me. I would love to call in some other time, but real quick, I live in a country that is very, very Catholic, and it is one of the least vaccinated countries in the European Union. I'm surrounded from all sides by people who are at the very best skeptical of the efficacy of the vaccines, and at the very worst, they are militant kind of, conspiracy nuts. And I find it very difficult. I have a bunch of questions I wanted to ask, but I think I'll just get to the most kind of a prominent one. How can I better engage in conversation with those people who simply dismiss the efficacy of the vaccines by kind of citing some study that they are not even able to pull up when asked?
Sure.
Even if they were able to, then how, it is not possible to go through a whole paper in a time to kind of reply properly, right?
Well, they didn't read it. they don't even know what they're referencing. The thing with these people is that they are getting they're regurgitating talking points that they hear from liars online. So my approach as a debunker is I target the source of the misinformation and I expose their fraudulence. So that's something that I do in a very calculated way. I make long form videos where I take things that they say and compare it to scientific literature. So yeah, obviously that's not something that you necessarily have the luxury of doing in like a one-on-one conversation on the street. I don't know. I mean, this is very hard. It's very like if it was really easy to show people that they're wrong about science, we wouldn't have science denial. It's very hard. But I think if you're very interested in being more active in combating science denial, working as hard as you can within the confines of how much free time you have and everything, becoming familiar with the most common talking points, where the genesis of them, where these lies come from. Like, okay, the autism thing, that's from Andrew Wakefield, and then this is where you can do that with all of these talking points, because these people are not common stuff. They go on the internet, and then some jerk says this, and some other jerk says that. They all can be traced to a source. And if you can become really familiar with all their talking points and just shut them down and like, well, why do you think that? But so you heard that on the internet, so it's true. Show them how their skepticism for the scientific community, it should be, if they're going to be consistent as a skeptic, they should also be equally skeptical of baseless claims that they see on the internet from some rando, right? So I don't know how much that helps, but it's basically just a homework assignment for you. But I try to make those debunks partially to help people like you, cut down the time for you. I just kind of put it all in a 1 hour video so you can go, oh, see, there. Okay, now I have a bunch of stuff I can tell people, So that's, I hope to try to do that, yeah.
So you're kind of suggesting that it's best to kind of trace it back to the original source and nip it in the bud, so to speak.
As best you can, yeah. If you can say, "Oh, you think that? Why? Because you heard so and so say that," or etc., and then be ready to show them. Yeah.
Very, very often they will pull up an actual. It's actually a bit of a sad situation. My girlfriend's father is actually one of the, perhaps not militant, but one of these conspiracy nuts. Last time we visited, he pulled out some sort of. It didn't have anything to do with anything that I'm particularly interested in, which is science denial, combating science denial, and evolution and religion. It was something related to the war in Ukraine, and he pulls out this study, which, as far as I could tell from from being cornered, was done by a reputable scientist working for a relatively reputable journal. And again, it kind of pisses me off, because they will pull up something, and he actually pulled up the actual paper on paper in front of me, which I briefly went through. And what is incredibly frustrating, because they will leave the conversation thinking that they've won. And it's not like I'm going to call my fucking girlfriend's father just to tell him, hey, actually, the study you cited was bullshit, right?
Yeah,
So
well, press him, right? What are you saying that this says, right? Did you even read it at all? Like, what, you know what I mean? Force them to take the Socratic method, just like force them to answer questions until they realize that they're at the wall of their script, and yeah, I don't know.
I got you. Okay, gentlemen, I don't want to take up any more of your time. If you want to cut it here, then I'm content, although I would love to call again.
Thanks, Jules.
Discuss it in more detail.
You're awesome.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you very much. Thank you for having me.
See ya. All right, we'll do super chats as long as Dave can, and then when Dave has to go, we'll just solo Aron with the super chats. But yeah, so Dave, is as long as you are able to be here, this is sort of my way of trying to say, don't feel guilty if you have to go before we're done.
No problem.
Awesome. It was awesome having you, by the way.
Because Dave is so very busy.
Important? Who knows? Busy? Yes. Two little kiddos. It's tough to leave my wife alone with them for too long.
Yeah, for sure. All right, here we go. If y'all want to alternate on reading them, that's you, or I can read them to you. Whatever you want to do, I'm good.
Let Dave do his thing. He's got it. I've talked way too much here.
$10 from Satan's Little Helper. I would love for Professor Dave and Aron Ra to have collaboration on evolution versus creation. What do I have to do to make this dream come true? Yeah, I've been focusing more on I've been going against creationism, but not sort of like the the Kent Hovind style, like the Young Earth or anything. I've been going more after the Discovery Institute, the creationism in a tuxedo style. But yeah, I mean, it could be fun to do some just general, general creationism debunking at some point. Could be good.
Sorry, I was talking with the mute on. I was also going to say, if you want it to happen anytime they're on here together, you just have to go get us some creationists to call in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, they could have called in today, right?
Fuck yeah.
I don't think they have the balls. $9.99 from DJ. I love both of your content. Oh yeah, guys. I wish I had more time to watch it. Question.
I get challenges constantly, but when people just need to call a fucking phone number to talk to us, they don't.
Yeah, we're here.
Where the hell are they?
They deserve equal platforming, is what they believe. That's another thing where it's this show is not equally platformed on purpose. We will do equally platformed shows in the future that are weighted to account for the fact that you shouldn't equally platform a creationist to an evolutionary biologist. But anyway, it's the weirdest fucking thing.
I got to tell you, during the show tonight, I got a message asking me to debate the flood again. And I replied that, you really need to stop platforming these people. They've lost the argument. At some point, you need to say, you lost. You've had long enough to make an argument. You couldn't do it. You're done.
And by the context of what you've given so far, I already know what channel it was on, and they're never going to stop because they're only there to platform dumpster fires. They're not there to platform debates. They're there and look, it's a legitimate business thing. My problem is the presentation I've seen in the past that they pretend it's a noble thing they're doing, and it's not. It's a fucking gross, toxic
I think
place.
I know what channel you're talking about, and I don't go on that channel.
Yeah, but I hope I'll reach out when we've got these. We're trying to debate. I'll reach out and I'll send you some proposals for some upcoming debates if you're interested. We'd love to have you back for that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It won't be that. It won't be what you're thinking of.
Okay, cool. I think the question here, why is the right so tribal? I think tribalism stems from an inability to find any kind of coherent identity out of one's own accord, either because of a lack of personality or cognitive ability. So they tend to glom together, my sports team or my, political group or whatever it is. just live your life. Don't be told what to think and who to hate all the time. Would be a much better way to live your life. $20 from Amargan. Aron, awesome seeing you. Prof. Dave, glad to have you back. Aron, it'd be fun to have you answer a call in the voice of Darth Sidious since you do it so well. I don't think I've heard that. Let's hear it.
I'll have to wait until there's another call.
Okay.
Maybe next show. I want to do these shows again, so I'm hoping that I get invited to co-host this thing again.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good. No, I'm kidding. You're great.
I can even dress like Darth Sidious, and Jimmy knows that. I'll do the whole show.
Yeah,
the whole next show is Darth Sidious.
Yeah. One thing I know we have to work on this channel, because I think I'm the only one who is adjusted to it, is we got to do a better job at pairing people who aren't both independently very good at this. It needs to be like a person who speaks a lot with a person who speaks a medium amount more in the future. Cause we do a lot of, I'm realizing we should have never platformed two people who are good at it at the same time. We should, Jimmy, that implies the other person would be bad at it, but I don't know how to articulate it.
I gotta say,
yeah.
When you've had me on and I was with Forrest, right? So he and I argue the exact same things.
Yeah.
But he does that from the perspective of someone who's young and has charisma.
Yeah.
And then you have me on with Erica, and she embarrasses me because she's like a third my age and she knows more than I ever will. That's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be involved.
No, I love these shows. I've just got to figure out the right pairings. Like when Matt and I do the shows on Sundays, Matt and I are people who both dominate every conversation. And I've learned to let Matt be more in charge on Sundays, even though it goes against every fiber of my being. So I have to find these like perfect balances. Yeah, it's a whole math equation, and it sucks. Anyway, sorry, continuing on. Did we read this one?
$20 from Logan Jacobs. Hey, Aron. Hey, Dave. Love the show. Question for Dave. What did you do with the gift you got from James before the debate? I actually just got this in the mail today. They had to mail it to me. Oops.
Nice.
Oh, damn. What is this? Oh, your verification?
It's a little plaque. Yeah, it's just, I took my channel name and logo and did it with graphene.
That's fucking awesome.
I had, it was too, I couldn't fit that in any, I only brought a backpack to Texas, so I couldn't take that on the plane. So I had somebody mail it to me.
You weren't in Austin, were you?
No, I was in Houston.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I much prefer Austin. I would like to come to Austin at some point.
Oh, we'll almost certainly have you out. Once we get our facility open and stuff, we'll be bringing people.
I would
here.
so love to go to Esther's Follies with Jimmy and Professor Dave. Shut up, dogs! Can you not tell?
Wait, Esther's Follies sounds familiar. What is that?
It's a thing. Everybody references it around here. I have no fucking clue what it is. I think there might be a lazy river. I don't know.
Esther's Folly sounds so familiar.
What is it?
What is it?
It's been going on for a really long time. This woman started up a show on 6th Avenue, and she does topical political humor, and she hires different actors and dancers, and they write really scathing political commentary. It's always new stuff. They have like they have like 2 or 3 skits that they've been doing since the beginning, but otherwise it's all topical, and it's wonderful.
But Esther's Follies is the name of the venue, right? Isn't it? It's the name of the.
Ever on 6th Street in Austin.
I played there once, actually.
Okay.
I remember that. I remember that spot. Nice.
Did we read this one?
Not yet. $20 from Matthew Hydro. Aron and Dave, what is your personal favorite philosophy book? I don't know, man.
Dave, are you into philosophy?
I have one on human. This was one that was given to me by Matt Dillahunty, and it's by David Hume, and I quite enjoyed that. But it's probably It's my favorite in the sense that I have a favorite biological daughter.
Yeah, the one you got. Dave, do you like philosophy, or is that a topic you enjoy?
I like philosophy. I mean, I'm putting out philosophy content right now, but it was written by a PhD philosopher. Yeah, I don't know. No, I'd have to get back. I mean, I got into like Nietzsche as a teen, I guess. But yeah, it sucks having precisely zero time to read for pleasure. But one day things will chill out, and I'll like read.
How do you appreciate Nietzsche now? Do you?
I haven't read it probably in 20 years, but I mean, I appreciate. I certainly appreciate who he was and how he helped humanity progress.
I wanted to appreciate Nietzsche more than I could make myself do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, my only thing, philosophy too. Yes, there's a lot of stuff I end up enjoy reading and stuff. The problem, I guess, being in this world is the way stupid people argue conspiracies like vaccine shit is not dissimilar to the way people who are slightly less than stupid, a little bit about, are at least mediocre brained, argue philosophy.
Yeah.
And the number of people who show up thinking I'm going to win this topic on a convoluted word game, and usually by quoting people who would be disgusted that they were being quoted in this way. It's more of philosophy has been ruined to me by amateur philosophers, the way that debate has been ruined to me by amateur debaters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, we hit the hour. You got to get out of here.
Yeah, I got a jet. But, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good. Until next time. Thanks, bye, everybody.
Hasta la bye-bye. Y bias nachos. All right, so $20 Australian from Matthew Hydro says, "Oh, you got to change it." Okay, so $20 Californian, probably meant Canadian. From Zachary Martin says, "Hi, Aron. I am an atheist, and I say I am not convinced any God exists because I can't claim no God exists due to burden of proof. But I have heard you say that no gods exist. How do you say that without burden of proof? Well, by having burden of proof." First of all, let's come up with a definition. And every definition that I've heard for God, ironically, they're usually specialized definitions that don't include the God that they were designed for. I had an argument today where somebody said that God is this transcendent being who doesn't have a body. But I'm like, but you believe in the Bible, right? You believe in the Bible, God? Where it says that he walks, talks, eats, sits, drinks, turns his head, waves his hand, shows his backside, and cheats at wrestling. And he also had a moment when 72 people could look upon his body and see and comment upon the surface that his feet are resting on. So he has feet as well. So here's a God that definitely has a body. So they're inconsistent. If your argument for God is that it includes the Bible God, if your argument is the Bible God, well, we can prove that one doesn't exist. If you have some lofty Spinoza-like concept that Einstein quite liked, well, now that's going to be a little bit harder to get. But Einstein and Spinoza rejected the Bible for obvious reasons. So we can talk more about that, and I'm open to do so. All right, so moving on to the next one.
Yep.
$20 from Chris Albanese. Cheers. Oh, I got to fill this. Okay.
Wait. Oh shit. Sorry. I was texting and then just was silent for a while. I was like, "The fuck's going on?" Aron, you're the host. You gotta fill the dead air. What are you doing?
I'm waiting for you to catch up, man.
Dead air.
I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming you for a damn thing. Okay, so $10 from the Raven 200. If my doctor started preaching at me, that doctor and I would be having problems. Jimmy, go get stuck in a 20-hour call with a manual, crappy audio and all. The Raven 200 is very explicit in the way that they say, go fuck yourself, Jimmy.
I assume that means they love me more than anybody else.
Yeah.
I hope.
And then we have $10 from the Bothell Guy, or from Bothell Guy. Moral foundation question. God versus well-being. If the afterlife switches, Christians go to hell, worship God there forever, or all else to heaven without God. Would they want us all to believe in God? So far as I can tell, the whole thing with the Christians is that they're afraid of being dead, which is a weird thing. I don't get that. I can understand being afraid of how you get dead, because that's a problem. From my perspective, regardless what your belief system is, we all face the same risk of lying on the floor, clutching your chest, gasping to get that last breath in. Your religious belief doesn't save you from that. But the idea of being dead, that's not a thing to be afraid of. As a matter of fact, when I was
kind of get it. Sorry,
when I was a child, the idea of being stuck in an eternal afterlife was far more terrifying. As Hitchens said, heaven is a celestial North Korea. At least you can die and leave North Korea. But in heaven, there's no way to just let it end.
So there are times where I get comfort from sort of, basically I will have the same angst and I get comfort from thinking through some of the things that you're describing. However, I do sort of generally understand, and I think it's actually good for atheists to try and figure out how to understand, because so many people have this. There is something unpleasant about it. It's basically like, it's severe FOMO, fear of missing out. The concept of you will have no awareness of anything that happens after that. The final second, or the once you are dead, the amount of time that passes, the next single second versus the next rest of time related to your perception will pass at the exact same rate, because you'll never have a follow-up moment of perception. And so, like, I don't know
the Samuel Clements quote on this, don't you?
No.
Mark Twain said that he has no fear of death. He has been dead for 1 billion generations before he was alive and didn't suffer one moment of anxiety from it.
Sure, and I get that. However, I think people could, if you really thought about it, you could have some anxiety about all the things you didn't, once you were alive, all the things you didn't witness before you were born. But anyway, but back to the post-death thing. Have you ever been unconscious? And when I say unconscious, I mean deeply unconscious, not even experiencing at the level of dreaming and stuff for an extended period of time. You ever been knocked out for a day or anything?
I'm gonna make an admission that I probably strategically should not make. I, for the longest time, was afraid of general anesthetic. I had a genuine fear of anesthetic. I could not drink to the point of passing out like so many of my friends could, because I was afraid of anything that would knock me out.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't. I have endured surgery awake.
Yeah.
It was advised that I should have under general anesthetic because I insisted that I not be put under. And so I've ridden through that because I was afraid of. But when it finally happened, there was some kind of a surgical procedure that they wouldn't let me do it awake. They said, no, you can't.
I actually, because I have complications with anesthesia, they are very limited on what things they'll put me under for anymore. But yeah, it sucks because I've had some procedures. The worst one psychologically is I've had basically completely no anesthesia, only local anesthetics, upper endoscopy, where they put the camera down your throat, and that is a fucking crazy experience. I would rather be cut open than do that again awake with local anesthetics. But anyway, the reason why I ask is if you've ever been knocked out for a long period of time, some people have a reaction like I have, which is that experience of truly a large amount of time passing way faster than sleep feels like, where it's an instant. It's just you're out and then you're up, and then you find out how much time has gone by, is a really disturbing feeling for a lot of people. And I sort of see death as sort of similar to that too. The concept of how much is going to pass. And not only are you not aware of it passing, you won't even be aware of the time that's passing, anything. And all of the things you don't know if people are going to solve, there's a huge fear of missing out. And just the concept of, I have such an experience of being now. I have such an experience of thought, of perception, of experience, that the idea of I can't even imagine what it's like to not have that, except for these experiences of time, large amounts of time passing, in an instant because of being truly knocked out down to the deepest level. And that can fuck a person up.
Yeah, I get that. I remember when my wife insisted that you can't endure this, and it doesn't make any sense why you would want to endure this awake. Just bite the fucking bullet, face your fear, and go under. I didn't want to be. I don't. It's a weird thing. I don't know if it even qualifies as cowardice that I don't want. I would rather endure all the pain of the sensation rather than be put down by the. How the fuck am I afraid of the anesthetic but not the surgery? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
But when I finally signed the forms that I will do the surgery and everything, and I seem to have this huge horse syringe, and they're going to roll on this thing. I remember looking at the guy and saying, "This isn't working."
And that's
then
the last
next thing I know,
yeah,
it's the next day.
Yeah.
And I'm in a different room.
You're just gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, phobias aren't rational. I'm terrified of tornadoes, but not hurricanes. And I live in Texas. Which one should I be terrified of, if either?
You live in a town, or you lived in a town
that
I was once in and saw the most horrific tornado one of the most horrific tornadoes that ever happened in Texas history.
Yeah.
And I was there.
Though I think the one that happened this last week beat it.
Seriously.
Yeah, this last one I think beat it, and not only did it beat it, it was also objectively worse because it killed people who weren't just in trailers. Like the people who died where I live back then, this town was only trailers, and so it was. You can't survive a tornado of more than an F1 in a trailer. You just can't.
I don't know if you're open to this, but I would love to have a discussion because of where you are. I would love to have a discussion about Texas tornadoes. Yeah. Just you and I having a short chat about that.
Yeah.
The one I saw in the town that you were living in.
Oh, you've told me the story. Yeah.
It was so impressive.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And the way that it dominated the airwaves for the next several hours, it was just the human toil.
My house got hit with me in it last November by one. It just wasn't strong enough to kill me, luckily, to take the house out. But yeah, I already had this phobia of tornadoes, and then I move, and within the first year of moving to somewhere within Tornado Alley, I survived getting hit by a tornado.
And you moved to a town that is most famous for
its
being wiped off the map.
If you think about it, though, it's only famous for one bad tornado. It gets hit by tornadoes all the time, but they're usually little ones. It's only famous for one bad one. And while this isn't how statistics work, if you pretend it is, it feels like statistically that means it's less likely to have a second murderous event. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
If you just ignore how stats actually work.
I don't know how ridiculous this is. I don't know how ridiculous this is, but I have an absolute baby on my hands right now. I love him so much.
Yeah, sweet one. Here, I'll start alternating with some of these reads. Well, this one was for Dave. It was thanks for helping me pass OChem, Dave. I'll pass that along to Dave, though.
That is brilliant. That was my favorite comment that he made in the debate when James Tour said that Professor Dave didn't understand chemistry. And Dave got a show of hands in the audience. How many of you passed your class because of my tutorials?
Fuck yeah. That's so good. Bothel Guy says, moral foundation question, God versus well-being. If the afterlife switches, Christians go to hell, worship God there forever, all else to heaven without God. Would they want us all to believe in God? I think they are asking what if God actually wants you to not believe in him for you to go to heaven? And would Christians, if that was the case, still want us to not believe? Do they just hate? Do they just need someone on the others to hate? Basically, I think. I don't know. That question was hard, Bothel Guy, to understand. So maybe call in with it if you don't mind next time.
So $10 from the Raven 200. There are still people who believe vaccines cause autism. I've met some in person. Very frustrating. Jimmy, go take a stink face from Rakishi.
If vaccines cause autism, y'all should be getting every vaccine you can because we're better than you.
I like that.
I just said that to piss people off.
There There's somebody in the chat, by the way, that I saw comment who is a professional reticulated python breeder.
Nice.
And I'm delighted that they happen to be involved while I have my baby out. This tiny little hatchling has the potential. This is a mainland reticulated python. In 1 year, this itty bitty boy will be 8 to 10 feet long. That's in the first year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the second year, he'll be able to eat people.
Pretty soon, if we keep this show going over too long, I'm going to eat a person. $4.99 from Megan Marie. Dave and Aron, your debates have helped me in deconstruction, but I still have questions. I hope one day I'll have the guts to call in. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. We're nice. You can call in. You'll be good.
$9.99 from Tommy Thomas. I
Sorry
just found
if that's
out
his real name.
Common birth defect. What?
I said sorry if that's your real name, Tommy Thomas.
$9.99 for Tommy Thomas. Just found out that I have a common birth defect. My top 2 vertebrae are fused. Am I seeing a mutation? Here's an interesting thing. One of my Patreons, who's also a personal friend of mine, has a second aorta. So
Wow.
we're talking about a big old guy who weighs 600 pounds, and yet he's not concerned about a heart attack because he has 2, where most of us only have 1.
So he's not worried about a heart attack because he hasn't had a first heart attack, but if he has his first one, he will then begin worrying?
Well, it's kind of like if he'd had a first heart attack, would he know?
You gotta, well, I don't know. Yeah, because there's tension in the area, right? And usually it causes a wild, I mean, it might just seem like flutters to him.
His is one of many mutations. I've gotten a list of human mutations that I would love to have. There's a myostatin mutation where if you get a double copy of it, you get double the musculature and half the fat. So and I knew somebody like this.
What a dick.
You're born looking like a Greek or Norse fucking god, right? And you don't. I'm like, dude, how the hell do you have this body? Because all you eat is tequila and acid. How the fuck do you look like that?
What a bunch of assholes. $5 from Ericpedia. Can the next person who talks to Emmanuel ask what denomination he is and whether his ideas are his own or handed down by a pastor because, and then there's a follow-up. Some of the things Emmanuel brings are weird, even by Christian standards. So I'm going to tell you this, 2 things, Ericpedia. I think you would have been able to fit your whole thing if you'd done a $10 one and instead of 2 $5 ones in one single message. But either way, do you live your life? But second thing, we have asked Emmanuel before, and I believe it's consistent with some amount of baptism. As far as whether or not it's a specific pastor or not, Emmanuel is a truck driver, so I don't think he's at the same church often. But I think he's some kind of Baptist, if I remember right. Here's for you if you like.
All right, $10 from the Raven 200 again. Emmanuel always uses the pottery example when it comes to excusing the actions of his celestial abuse spouse. He's so afraid of hell, he can't fathom anything that goes against his brainwashing. The part that bothers me the most is how you make the justifications for the abuse spouse.
Yeah.
It's one thing that you can't realize that the thing you're afraid of isn't real. It's another that you can't get the abuse that you're giving all of this praise to a complete narcissist who does not give a fuck about your feelings, that it's all about him, and it's not even a real person. We're not even talking about the fact that it's not a real person. You just can't get the fact that it's a narcissist. If it was a real person, it's not somebody worthy of your attention.
But the Bible disagrees, so that would be his response, like literally. Anyway.
$10 from Jason Jones. Aaron, did we have an Aaron on today?
Must have.
Congratulations on Jormungandr. Oh, that's what a curious coincidence. That's his name. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I absolutely love this snake.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Only 3 left if y'all want the show to keep going and for me to keep being hungry, which is fine for money. Then you gotta send your show and you can put your stuff in now.
All right, $10 from the Raven 200. Also, Jimmy, go shake hands with the character who is my profile picture, Tamura Shigaraki.
From context, I assume I wouldn't enjoy that.
Yeah, these are too, I don't know, obscure.
They are pretty obscure.
$5 from Minute Rice. There's a name I know. If debate has been ruined by amateur debaters, then perhaps we need more master debaters. Oh, you used that joke? Great show. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Interesting thing about Minute Rice. Minute Rice and I met for a beer in my hometown, a local brewery, and I brought my boa constrictor imperator, and Minute Rice fell in love with this huge 7-foot constrictor that I brought. So much so that in 1 week he had ordered one online, and he now owns a boa constrictor imperator.
Nice. This does remind me, though, how funny it is that this week I have been fighting with all these anti-vaxxers who think that scientists should debate that politician. And I've been making posts about how fucking stupid that would be and why that doesn't work and why debate is nowhere near close to the standard that peer review is and shit like that. And I've been enjoying how all of them jump past and think that I am saying debate has no place in society. And so I like to just reply like, boy, it'd be really fucking embarrassing if your attack on me was going to somebody who runs a fucking debate, not just channel, like company. I am benefiting from debate. The 98% of the population, it pays my fucking bills. Like, the fuck are you talking? Like, this shows how fucking stupid they are. They will jump to any amount of conclusion. One person had said something like, it's extremely obvious you bought all your followers because you have 33,000 followers on Twitter, but only got, I don't know what it was, like 20 likes on a tweet, but it was on a comment. It was a comment under a comment replying to Gad Sad. So first of all, it's Gad Sad's fans who are mostly seeing the thread anyway. But also I was like, I love this whole, that it's obvious. I bought it. What is this?
Oh, I just wanted to show what it is. This is the Dogfish Head Wake Up Worldwide Stout, 70% ABV.
Got it. I was like,
this is what I've been drinking tonight.
I love that these people admit that they are stupid because he said it's obvious. I've never bought a single Twitter person, but there's no doubt the number of followers I have seems large for the amount of engagement because I got most of my followers 3 or 4 years ago when I was going viral. Like, that's the actual explanation, and they just have fallen off. And so I love when they say it is obvious that this is the reality, and it's like, well, that isn't the reality. So you've just admitted that things you think are obvious aren't true, you fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing here?
Jimmy, I've been doing my channel since, I want to say, around 2005. And I'm just short of 300,000 subscribers, but I've been doing this since 2005.
Don't go look at my personal channel.
Look at how many people have shot well past me in their first year or two of operation. I'm kind of embarrassed at that.
Yeah, it means your content's good. Good content, it isn't rewarded the way it should be.
I'll take that or any justification I can find at this moment.
Dude, the channel that I have that has 350,000 subscribers on it got that many subscribers because I basically became a here's this stupid person. So it was more of a shitting on the people. That's not fair to say. It was shitting on the ideology, but it was focused more on shitting on the cringy person and knowing who everybody was hating at that time and making sure more from the reality TV side of things, style sort of things, that those types of people were being attacked. I'm not proud of the size of my channel because I think that roughly half of them are there for the toxic reasons that I was making the content. It's the good stuff isn't what gets you the
shut
most
up.
Of the time.
Can you shut
popularity comes with a shit ton of toxicity.
I wasn't talking to you, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
Not this time.
We have a new puppy. And do you see that puppy? This is a boxer. Look at that puppy face.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I know what you were thinking. You were sitting there going like, we really need another dog. I feel like the number of dogs we have right now doesn't interrupt our shows enough. And it'd be nice if we would have more dogs during the shows. Anyway. Here's the next one.
Exactly. Thank you. $10 from Skeptics and Scoundrels. I can relate to your lack of anesthesia horror stories. I once listened to a Kent Hovind lecture completely sober. I had hand surgery from when I punched something I shouldn't have punched and noticed that I was one knuckle shy of what I normally have. And then I opened my hand. I'm like, oh, well, there it is. My knuckle is in the palm of my hand. And I went for surgery on this, and I refused the general anesthetic. So they gave me 11 shots with this ridiculous horse needle in my armpit. Each one of those shots hurt well enough that I should have asked for a general anesthetic, and then the general didn't work. So they ran a power drill into my hand so that they could put these metal stints in to put my knuckle back where it was supposed to be. And the guy said, well, now, how did that feel? And I said, remarkably, like you just ran a power drill through my hand. I can still feel it all. And the anesthesiologist comes in with his 12th shot. I'm like, nope, you fulfilled your legal requirement. Just leave me the fuck alone.
Get me out of here. Wild. Yeah, just take the anesthesia next time.
I will now.
Yeah.
I've finally gotten over that phobia. It's just I'd never been put out before. It's just because I had never been put out before.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
So $10 from general comments. Christians evangelizing on the street here. When approached, I proudly and politely say, no thanks, I'm an atheist. Thank you for that.
Hell yeah. So I'd start using the word skeptic in that scenario because atheist doesn't say much anymore. Fucking Christ.
And people always misread what it means. They think that atheism is a religion.
Yeah,
I don't get how the lack of religion or the rejection of religion is a religion, but that's what they always try to make it into.
See, I feel like we've made good strides as a community at destigmatizing atheism, honestly, in the last 5 years, probably more than the previous 100 years. And to the point that less often, if you just say atheist, do people go, and now we've actually gotten at the point where a lot of times like, well, I'm an atheist, and somebody's like, okay, fine. I don't give a fuck. And so now with that done, because the word atheist does not have a single positive connotation, nor should it have any negatives, but even with all the negatives gone, there's no positive ones. I start to go with skeptic because you don't know what atheist this person has met before. They've maybe only met atheists that are definitely atheists, and they're fucking idiots. I wish atheist was synonymous with smart or skeptical, but it ain't.
Yeah, just because you're an atheist doesn't mean that you have humanist values. It doesn't mean that you're scientifically trained. It doesn't mean that you have any of the loftier aspirations that I would hope that that atheists would be known for.
Right.
I mean, back a decade ago, if you were atheist, it meant that you were against any, that you were socially regressive oftentimes. So I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
All right. So the next comment, $5 from Ware Lemur, 1138. Baby snake. Yes. This little bitty tiny baby boy who is only 2 months old could be as much as 16 feet long 1 year from today. This itty bitty thing. And I love him so much.
I love this username. $5 from Autistic. I'm autistic for sure. Sending a donation to fund vaccines for a neurotypical in need. That's right. You better hope it makes you autistic. You can finally get on our level.
And then $13.99 Californian, probably meant Canadian there, from Kathleen Moncrief. I made it here before the show ended, and Jimmy left to go enjoy himself.
No, Kathleen, I haven't been on camera. Professor Dave was here. I'm not prepped to be on camera. For the first half of the show, I wasn't even wearing a shirt. You know how hot it is in this place? And I promise, me not wearing a shirt is not camera ready. I promise.
But the implication here is that you're not wearing pants.
I rarely am wearing pants at home. Who the fuck wears pants at home? I got underwear on. It's fucking hot.
Okay, well, at least there's that. All right, $10 from Ericopedia. Jimmy, Thank you for the lesson on how the super chat system works. Here's some more money and go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you can buy more characters. It's funny because the person you were saying was trying to attack you for the debate you did would or wouldn't accept. They kept trying to from different accounts and like, why do you keep blocking this question? And so I just replied, because you didn't super chat it. Pay us and we'll put it up.
Yep.
Fucking this. How do you think this Q&A works? Why would you jump to the front? Pay us and we'll put it up.
And you notice there was no discussion of the venue. It was, I put down what my requirements are. You have the venue, contact me and say, here's the topic. No, I don't take challenges from the guy.
Yeah.
From the person who wants to debate me. I don't give a fuck. I don't care who the person is. Give me the venue, give me the moderator, and then it'll say, okay, here's where it's going to be, and here's how much we will pay you.
Yep. His time is worth money. Audience. Fucking pay him for his time, dipshits.
But every one of you use the word dipshit. I think that's appropriate. Every one of these dipshits who challenges me to a debate already knows they're not going to be able to pull an audience.
Yeah.
They want my audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love the word dipshit. It is one of the fucking best insults.
$4.99 from Claire. I still distinctly remember when I was getting my wisdom teeth out and the guy told me to stop whining.
I back then I actually got knocked out for my wisdom teeth. One of our channel members, RPG Depunks, wrote, I'd pay exactly 1,000 pennies to see Jimmy shirtless, which is far more than that's worth. You might pay 1,000 pennies to see it, and you would follow that up by paying $1,000 to unsee it. To get me to put my shirt back on.
What has been seen cannot be unseen.
Yeah, that's right.
$9.99 from Jamnik06. Please share more of your concerns with that YouTube channel that does debates profit. I'm not asking for its name. I think I know, but I am curious for your thoughts.
I don't think I have to. The concerns I gave is the entire element. I already know what channel inspired them to begin, and I knew that original channel very personally, and their philosophy. They literally would put dumpster fires in their graphics. That is the goal. That is again. I'm not actually saying they are doing something existentially wrong, I guess, per se. I think it's masquerading as something that is, I think they're pretending it's something else, that they're participating in some incredible culture of, and by the way, I don't shit on my friends who go on, but I do shit on that channel in front of my friends who go on, as I've done tonight. And I do when Matt goes on too. And I think the culture over there is masquerading its nobility. I might go on though, if they offered me enough money, but how much I'm willing to do it for. I'm not saying I am worth paying more than Matt or Aron, but I would charge way more than Matt or Aron to go on that channel. I don't believe I'm worth more. I, however, will charge more. I don't know if you've ever seen is it James Acaster? Is that the name of the guy? The free banana bit? You're too good for a free banana. I'm too good for a free banana. It's a really good bit if you've never seen it. It's so good. It's something that I wish everyone would see, because the phrase "you're too good for a free banana" needs to become I think it is James Acaster. Let me double check. Yeah, James Acaster, free banana. Look up that on YouTube after we're done, which is now, because that was the last one.
That was your last super chat?
Yep, and that's not the host. That's the co-host. There we go. Dave was here Jimmy, the whole time, staying extremely still.
Jimmy, thank you sincerely for having me on.
It's good night.
I'd be delighted to do another show with you. And I'll try to be a little bit more professional if I can get the fucking puppy to shut up. Yeah, you right there. Shh. Okay. It's not me. I'm not going to take any of the blame.
Yeah, I got you. I didn't realize that was the end. I was like, is that goodbye? Reminder, everybody, be back here on Saturday, and every day this week we have awesome shows, but on Saturday we are doing the fundraiser for the Recovering from Religion Foundation. They are an amazing as charities go, they're in my top 5 and my favorite one to work with. Amazing organization that helps people who are going through losing your religion is traumatic, and you need resources to go through it most of the time. And if there is an organization that has collected most of the types of resources you would need, it's RFR, and they are just awesome. They are so charitable with their time. They are so charitable, obviously, as a charity. They are great. You can go to the link now in the description and hit set reminder, and you can even donate now. But other than that, I think we are all done. Say goodbye, Aron Snake. We'll end with the
Hasta la bye-bye. Y bias nachos.
We don't have a version of this without both hosts on, so there's the freeze frame of Professor Dave.
In all sincerity, Jimmy, thank you for having me on again. I can't wait to do the next one.
Well, that was supposed to fade a little bit more kindly, and